A great new life for people from sub-Saharan Africa. They actually said, you know, what do you think happens when a guy from Sudan comes up through Libya and makes his way all the way to the UK and gets put in a luxurious hotel and provided with everything? And make no mistake, it is a perilous journey. We see it from the end point. We see the channel crossing as the dangerous bit. But actually where these journeys begin is in the hot desert. Many tens of kilometers have to be covered on foot by these migrants, and as many as 1 in 4 do not make it. That means bodies in the desert. The Libyan authorities are having to recover bodies in the desert. About the UK and how much awareness. Please understand the scale of what we are dealing with here with very limited resources. Once again, you know, people come in from charities, from NGOs, they use warm words, and the authorities here told me the only thing that we ever get is maybe a few toothbrushes and some nappies for the babies. Libya has become a major transit route for refugees and migrants from sub-Saharan Africa, and many of them come through Libya dreaming of getting to the UK, particularly from Sudan, where there has been a civil war waging for the last 2 years. And those asylum seekers or economic migrants who make it from Sudan to the UK have a 99% chance of being given leave to remain.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side, this is Talk.
Well, what an honour it is to be hosting the Morning Glory here. A few more left before it becomes the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. But for now, it's the Morning Glory, and I'm Jonny Gould. I'm here till 10 o'clock with your breakfast show on the day the world comes back to life in a Boxing Day kind of fashion. We have retail sales that are going to go through the roof, apparently. I know it's busy out there. Cost of living crisis? What cost of living crisis? It's going to be busy today. Let's hope for good fortune among the people today, whatever's going on out there, and a bit of unity. Oh, that word unity, what exactly does it mean? It's like unity with an asterisk. It's conditional on certain things, what you have to believe in, doesn't it? We'll talk about that and much more in the papers with Simon Danczuk, former Labour MP. He was in the Houses between 2010 and 2017. What's Simon's future? You'll find out on the show as well. And we'll go through some of the headlines as well. Teacher likened to a terrorist after showing Trump videos to students. That's the front of your Daily Telegraph today. A teacher was referred to the government's counter-terror programme. Excuse me. I know, it's making me cough. After showing Donald Trump videos to his US political class, the teacher, who's in his 50s, has told the Telegraph he was likened to a terrorist and accused of posing a risk to children after showing the videos. I'm just having one of those starts to the show. Will you excuse me a second? It's called the cough key for a reason, ladies and gentlemen. I'm pleased to have relieved myself without you having to hear that across the national and international airwaves. And there's another story here in the Times, which is most worrying, in that thousands more homes are going to be hit by this mansion tax. Now, when you think about a mansion, you think of, I don't know, Buckingham Palace, don't you? You think of Kensington Palace, you think of Blenheim Palace. But for your average Terry and June nuclear family in South London, that can also be a semi-detached 3-bedroom home, because tens of thousands of homeowners face being unfairly dragged into paying Rachel Reeves' new mansion tax because of how the value of homes will be assessed, okay? Now, experts warned that properties could be overvalued by as much as 30 grand, leading to homeowners being subject to an annual surcharge starting at £2,500 as part of these plans being drawn up to target homes worth more than £2 million. I can tell you that 3-bedroom flats in, I don't know, let's say Zone 1 or Zone 2 on the Tube, if you know London, they're £2 million, and they've already got expensive surcharges, like, for example, looking after the lifts and all that. And you might think, yeah, they're rich, these people, but they're not, are they? They're asset rich and penny poor. Because if you think of those flats, you can imagine the ones. They're in posh areas of London or even Manchester and Birmingham and Edinburgh and whatever. If the person has lived there for 30 years or so, they may have lost their husband, okay? They may never have traded down, whatever that means, and they may live on their own because they're comfortable there. They may only have a pension. They're not rich. They don't live in a mansion. This is really greedy stuff and is a sledgehammer to crack a nut. And as usual, when you impose tax rises on people like the farms, you cause unintended consequences. You bash people who you really shouldn't be bashing. 0344 499 1000. What did you think of the King's speech yesterday? I listened very closely because, you know what? Every syllable and every shot that is shown in the King's speech really means something. And I first of all want to say how composed he is on camera and what a genuinely good broadcaster he is. That sincerity where he says what he says and then he looks down. He really means what he says. And I don't know about you, but I think 3 or 4 years into his reign, he's doing a rather good job. Shall we have a look?
In this, with the great diversity of our communities, we can find the strength to ensure that right triumphs over wrong.
My God, I hope you're right, King, Your Majesty. I really hope so. I'm not sure that that is always the case. We've seen some very grievous attacks between minorities on other minorities in this so-called multicultural and diverse society that we live in. And it's been one of the worst years I think we can ever remember. Mike Neville, who is a friend of the station, you've seen him on Talk, he was on my show a couple of days ago, and he said very pithily and very clearly that we can't have any multiculturalism and diversity when one minority is attacking another. And that short phrase is sticking with me. I wonder what you think. 0344 499 1000. And the King's speech on the BBC was like a reboot of the whole day on the BBC yesterday. It was like the sort of BBC we want to see, because all the apparatchik news people had gone home spewing their newsroom poison upon the country, and we were left with gentle Peter Ustinov films and a bit of Bing Crosby playing the piano. It was a BBC we really liked. And even on their breakfast shows, their live output. Hello there, I'm somebody that you recognise, and we're now going to be deferential to the royal family. It was really nice to see the BBC as it was on the 25th of December. And so I'm going to recoin the phrase that Wizard imposed on us in the 70s. Well, I wish it could be Christmas on the BBC every day, because it was really pleasant. I don't know what they're going to do today, but that's just my comment. And obviously, there's a flip side to the BBC behaving as they do 364 other days of the year, which is we exist. We exist because they do what they do, okay? I think that's very important to note. And with that, on that bombshell, I'm going to introduce my guest for the next hour. It is a real pleasure to have with me former Labour MP Simon Danczuk. It's nice to meet you in person, sir.
Nice to meet you, Johnny. Happy Boxing Day.
Happy Boxing Day, Merry Christmas. It's only the second day.
Exactly, we're
There's
still
another
in it.
10 to go.
Yeah, we're in the middle of the festivities.
Isn't it nice? And, you know, people take down their tree before January the 6th, which is the 12th day.
I think that's right.
I think people should enjoy the whole thing. Do
For
you think-
longer.
I put out a question a couple of days ago if one's own Christianity had played a wider role, a bigger role in their Christmas this year than it had done in previous years, because I think atheism and descaling ourselves of our nation's Christianity, and I'm talking as a non-Christian here, has happened over the last 30 or 40 years. But actually, I'm finding that perhaps Christianity plays a more important role, that if you were brought up in one of the churches, that perhaps you feel, perhaps as you get older, that maybe being rooted in somewhere or something is a bit more important.
I think it is important, and we're a Christian country, aren't we? I think that's worth remembering. My wife and I are Christians. We go to church on a regular basis.
Really? That's nice to hear.
Yeah. And one's religion is important, yeah. I think it's important.
The King said it throughout his speech yesterday.
Yeah.
I really liked it.
Yeah, though I have to take issue with some of what he said. He talked about, diversity and all the rest of it, and I have some concerns about that. This idea that multiculturalism has worked in Britain, that we have to celebrate diversity, and my challenge there is that it's all one-way traffic. It's all about Christians being accepting of Muslims, not Muslims being accepting of Christians. And so I think actually the King should stay out of that debate. I don't think he does himself. This is my personal view.
Yeah.
He doesn't do himself any justice there, really. And I think there are many people, including myself in this country, who feel like we've been done badly by in terms of politicians insisting that we celebrate multiculturalism. I think it's been a failure from a political perspective in this country. And people are fed up of being asked to celebrate diversity because they can see that in many respects it's people, from a Muslim background and Islamic faith who've been committing various assaults and crimes on the people of Britain, and people have added up to here with it, to be quite honest. On a serious note.
I really fully agree with you, and perhaps even more urgently, these terms diversity and multiculturalism, embracing your neighbour when perhaps it might be one way, is something that literally cannot be done by members of the Jewish community who get murdered going to synagogue on Yom Kippur, who light candles on Bondi, which is supposed to be an international playground. When you think of Bondi, you think of blonde-haired, suntanned, tinny-drinking Aussies on Barbies. You think of that sort of, that romance, that idea of people, and it's been destroyed. We literally can't have that anymore. When I cross the road to take my kids to a synagogue, the road is a bit wide, and therefore people can bomb down it at 60 miles an hour or more. There's no speed humps. So I make sure that not only do I look across the road for cars at the distance, I look at cars turning right further to make sure that we can get across the road in time, because if we're in the middle, we're going to get killed. That is what I'm thinking. So that's not a multiculturalism that I'm going to preach.
No.
In 2026, Simon.
Exactly. No, I can understand that. I mean, return to the papers, a lot of them are talking about Bondi Beach bouncing back, this images of, Australians on that beach. But let's not forget what happened there. I mean, this is a total travesty. I mean, in terms of the murder of the members of the Jewish community. And we've seen it in Manchester as well, in Britain. And so it's great to hear that Bondi has bounced back, as the papers are saying
I
today.
hope so.
Yeah, but at the same time, let's not forget that we are in a battle with extremists, Islamic extremists, and we are a Christian country first and foremost. That's what we should celebrate, and that's what we should insist on celebrating, especially at this time of year.
Does your former party get it?
No, I don't think they do.
They
actually
don't understand it, do they?
No, I don't think
I'm
they
really
do.
worried about that.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I think that's a major problem for them actually.
Yeah.
And that's probably why they're doing so badly in the opinion polls, because British people generally take the view that we're a Christian country. I think you've hit on a really interesting point there actually in the political discussion, that Labour don't. They are the purveyors of diversity and multiculturalism. They're insistent in imposing this on people, but people have had enough of it, and there's a bit of a fight back, quite a bit of a fight back, which I'm pleased about actually. People are pushing back on it, and perhaps that returns to your point near the beginning, which is, you know, this Christmas more than perhaps previous Christmases, people are feeling more religious and conscious of Christianity than perhaps they were in previous years.
Yeah, that is very interesting. I mean, the discussion perhaps when we were kids was that Christmas was becoming too commercial. And if you listen to some of the pop songs of the time, I wish it could be Christmas every day starts with the till ringing.
Yes, that's a good observation.
I think that's guilt, you know.
Yeah.
And I think Roy Wood was saying, can't we have Christmas like it used to be?
Yeah.
And again, later on, I like Christmas songs as social commentary.
Yeah.
Justin Hawkins, Christmas time, don't let the bells end. I think he basically is also saying in the late 90s, perhaps early noughties, he's saying there's too much commercialism and we're all getting a bit down. Let's remember what Christmas is about.
Yeah.
Which is why I like, Simon, the very wholesome message of my lads from the Black Country.
Yes.
Slade,
yes,
saying things like, are you waiting for the family to arrive? You know, the idea of they've got a family, people aren't on their own.
Yeah.
Everyone's waiting with great enjoyment that your nan's coming round.
Together.
Everyone's
all
coming
squashed
around.
into a small terraced house, you know, like 20 people, uncles, aunties, cousins.
Somewhere like Ford houses in Wolverhampton. And various other lovely places that I know and love. I haven't been there for many years, I've got to tell you. I've been down here, down London, down the smoke for many years. I always laugh because Black Country people call London the smoke.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, where are we
There is
from?
no smoke nowadays, is there?
Well, it's true, but it wasn't half smoky when
you
I
arrived.
was there, Briley Hill, where they used to... I used to remember, I mean, it makes me feel like 100 years old, but when I used to go to Briley Hill, there were guys who used to smelt, you know, with like iron, with like really red hot metal, and their faces were red because it was hot in there and they would get burnt.
Yeah, gosh.
And that was the 80s.
Yeah.
It wasn't even that long ago that these guys existed.
Yeah.
That guy won't be with us anymore. He was in his late 60s then, but he was still working.
But that's the irony, that they were calling London the smoke when all the smoke was being generated in the Midlands.
I just laugh at that idea.
Yeah, yeah.
And by the way, in the Black Country, right, football was obviously the biggest sport. You had Wolves and Albion and Walsall and obviously the Villa, etc. But the number 2 sport when I was growing up in that area, and it's not surprising, was Speedway, because it was all about bikes and oil.
Going around the stadium.
Get your hands dirty.
Is that right? Yeah, yeah. I remember when I was a kid going to the stop cars crashing into each other.
We used to have that. We used to have that.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Half of them would come over the barrier and kill about 3 or 4.
Yeah, my dad used to take me stock car racing as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
What a love. It sounds so antique. But we're not old, are we, Simon?
No, I'm only 59. I mean, that's young nowadays.
I'm even younger than you.
Oh, wow.
Not by much. Anyway, so it's great to have Simon here in this studio. We're going to talk more about the papers. We're going to talk about, again, this mansion tax issue and Labour's small boats shame revealed as bombshell charts show scale of crisis in 2025. And perhaps we'll talk also about Simon and his political future as well, because, as you know, Simon's no longer in Parliament. He was there for 7 years, up till 2017. He's no longer in the Labour Party. He's a Reform councillor, aren't you, Simon?
Reform member.
Reform member. Will he be a councillor? Will he be an MP? We'll get those answers in a moment.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
And a morning to you. It's the Morning Glory, and I'm Jonny Gould. I'm here till 10 o'clock, and, you know, we wash our dirty linen in public, and I have got a few text messages from you, some positive and some not so much. Okay, so I'm going to read them all out. From investors, you don't really say who you are, that would be helpful. Stop talking this rubbish about people with £2 million properties, Johnny, not being wealthy. They are. No, they're not. Either they can afford such a mortgage or they own the property. If it's the latter they claim, they cannot pay the tax, they are dumb. Refinance. A 77-year-old woman can't refinance, okay? They can do one of those things where they get taken out by someone who lets them live rent-free in the property for, you know, time immemorial, and then they die and then the property gets converted to them. But instead of it being worth £2 million on the opening market, and you try and sell a house at £2 million at the moment, you can't. You cannot sell a house. The market is flat. They'll get rooked. They'll get taken out. The property will be valued at 1.4 million. Okay, so they'll get taken out, and then the old lady will think, well, you know, what did my husband work so hard for? What did I work so hard for? Okay, what is the point of leaving all your money tied up and living in a property? Or, sorry, living in poverty, it says. There are many options to raise money for such a property, and the answer to that is a bit of dignity. You know, for example, if someone has lived there all their lives and they're the anchor to their family and they've got generations of family that visit them and they live in a certain area, it is very difficult to sell a property at the moment if you want to move on. Kemi Badenoch has really thrown the cat amongst the pigeons by saying that she would get rid of stamp duty altogether because, as she says, it is a bad tax. It's a really bad tax. I really feel strongly about this. It's a bad tax for young people because young people cannot be upwardly mobile. If you want to buy a house and you have to lump a load of money into stamp duty, you're sort of mortgaging your prospects for the future. Whereas if you suddenly buy yourself, I don't know, a £250,000 house or a £300,000 flat, you can move from Middlesbrough to Newcastle. You can move from Sheffield to Manchester. You can move from Manchester to London, and you can become mobile. We need mobility among the people. We need mobility in the jobs market. And the more tax you impose on people, the more you imprison them. I feel very, very strongly about this. And I think when Kemi said, and that's why I'm getting rid of all stamp duty, and then smiled at the camera, I thought that was a Thatch moment. Simon.
Good for her. Yeah, I think there are a number of bad taxes. I agree with you.
That's a bad one, isn't it?
Yeah, stamp duty. I think inheritance tax is a bad tax.
Nasty. It's a double tax, isn't it?
Yeah, you've already paid your taxes. I think Britain needs to slimline its taxes and its tax system. The Treasury is far too powerful in this country, and I mean we need to spend less on services as well. I mean, you know, on benefits particularly, so on welfare we need to reduce the tax take, but get rid of some taxes completely. It's far too complex.
Yes, and the kind of the kind of basic rule about taxes is the law of unintended consequences. And also the kind of imprisonment of mobility. Yeah. It stops you from your own human invention. Yeah. It discourages you from thinking about stuff. Yeah. It makes you want to defend your position rather than go out and try even more. Yeah. It makes me sad.
Yeah, there are people in the Treasury who are thinking up new things to tax all the time. I mean, what sort of job is that? You know?
George Harrison wrote a song about it, didn't he?
Did he?
He wrote Taxman in the Beatles, didn't he?
Right.
Which was because I think he was the resident Tory in the Beatles, wasn't he?
Not like John Lennon.
No, John was a bit more lefty, wasn't he? Yeah. Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. Margaret in Birmingham, thank you and good morning to you. Morning, Johnny and Simon. Welcome to the Early Bird Club, thank you very much. Johnny, I loved your interview with Andy Lowndes the other night and the Billy Wright story. Andy, like, he was only on for 30 minutes. We could have renamed the station Andy Lowndes Talk, couldn't we? Because I can throw anything at Andy and he can talk back at me. And that Billy Wright story, if you weren't watching, was like this surreal dream that I had, walking up Bennet's Hill in Birmingham with Billy Wright in a lovely summer suit with yellow socks and light brown shoes and a beautiful tweed lovely suit in the height of summer. But it really happened. I was there with Billy Wright, the Wolves captain, who was then the head of sport at Central TV, and my mum. And I had this idea that my mum and Billy Wright were friends. I was only 6 or 7, and that it was the most natural thing in the world for my mum to be sharing a chat with Billy Wright walking up Bennet's Hill. Not only that, but Bennet's Hill, we were walking in the middle of the road. This really, really did happen. And the reason why my young mind thought that this was the most natural thing that could ever happen was that my grandfather played professionally and won the title in Vienna, playing for a team called Hakoah. So I thought, oh, he was just one of the mates, you know, one of the guys. And of course, it wasn't anything like that. Terry in Slough. Hi, Johnny. I'm 76. And in my opinion, the only growth industry under this useless, incompetent Labour government will be poverty. Thank you for that pithy note there. The housing market is broken, says Anna in Surrey, because we have millions of... I'm not sure, I'm not quite going to read this out as it was, because I don't really want to do this emotive stuff. But basically, she's saying lots of immigrants are leeching off British taxpayers, occupying thousands of properties that they can't afford to be in, properties that should be available to British people. I mean, if I can just caveat and say, yes, there is too much public sector involvement subverting the property market. I get what you're saying. I just want to kind of slightly detoxify one or two of the things that you said, if you don't mind. The King's speech was a disaster. No thought for indigenous Christians. You very wisely not only written in capital letters, but you've not said who you are. Please, if you email or you text, just tell us who you are. Who are you? Who are you? Just tell us who you are. Tony, nice to see you again up the Villa. Absolutely, going to Chelsea tomorrow. Lisa, it's a very nice WhatsApp, and she's been a bit eviscerating of me, Simon. We had Rupert Lowe MP on for Great Yarmouth, and she's disappointed to see me on presenting this morning because I defended, or she says I defended, the cruel slaughter of halal. I didn't. I didn't. I put halal to one side. I was actually defending the slaughter of kosher. I was talking about kosher. I was trying to separate the discussion between kosher and halal. I don't really know a great deal about halal. I'm learning about it. But the point I was making to Rupert was just an extension of his argument. He was talking about stunning animals before they are slaughtered, whereas in kosher preparation, the animal has to be fully healthy before it is slaughtered, and so therefore there is no stunning. And many people argue on the kosher side that actually it is extremely quick and painless. I tell you what, every time I have a discussion like this, it makes me want to be a vegetarian. But I wasn't disrespecting him. I was just bringing in other wider discussions with him. And I also said to him, which is something that I don't think he considered, is that every time kosher is banned in a country, it precipitates the steady decline and eventually the expulsion of Jewish people. That's as serious as this discussion can be. And we make our choices. Do you want a community of Jewish people here or not? And so that was all I wanted to say. I'm not defending the slaughter of halal. I wasn't doing that, but I was just bringing into the conversation, and it was a very sober conversation, as I think we should always have here on Talk. Simon.
It's good to be with you. Never done this before.
No. We haven't been. What do you make of all? What do you make of that word salad? What do you make of all that?
I think you're doing a good job. Keep going.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, no,
Thanks. All right. Thank you. Right. Well, let's. We can only go downwards from here, I suppose. I've still got another 3 hours to go. Now, I just want to pick out some of the other stories. What did you think of the King's speech? I mean, I listened very, very closely to the King's speech, and I tell you what I am, Simon. I am an unadulterated, proud monarchist. I am very proud of the settlement of this country. I really believe in the royal family, notwithstanding some of their human frailties.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
We know what they are. They've been printed in the papers over the last 40 years. And, you know, Diana and Harry and Meghan and Andrew and all these things going on. You know, it's a soap opera. But the institution of the royal family is to be treasured.
I agree with that. I'm a monarchist. I think we should have a monarchy. I think the structure in which Britain operates, I think we should be proud of. I don't think the monarch should get too involved in politics, but that's as it should be. This is my view. The royals are all over the front pages today, aren't they? But I would argue as well that we should shrink the royal family.
Right.
And the way I would do that in practical terms, this would be my advice to government and to King Charles, is to cut Andrew loose completely. We don't need him anymore.
Yeah.
Harry and Meghan, cut them loose completely. We don't need them anymore.
What, take the HRH off?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I accept that we enjoy the soap opera that's around the royal family. But people like Andrew, and there's more to come, isn't there? You know, in terms of the Epstein files. But he was at Windsor yesterday, whilst all the family were at Sandringham. Even his daughters were. This is all over the papers today. His daughters were at Sandringham with the king, not with their father, Andrew.
Yes.
Which is something to behold.
You kind of would, though, wouldn't you? If I was Eugenie and Beatrice, I would hang out with the royal family at this time.
Yeah.
Because privately, it does look like there's two discussions. There's the out one where Charles has said, "Come into my office, Andrew. This is terrible, really bad, and I'm stripping of your titles and all your admiralties.
Yeah.
But you can live on Sandringham.
Yeah.
Because you're my brother, and you're a silly moo, but you're my brother." So he's not been cast out, he's been cast in. And I just sort of wonder whether I was once told off by a very clever manager who castigated me in public and said, "In fact, Johnny, come to my office." I thought, oh no, I'm going to get the sack. And basically I came into his office, he said, "Shut the door." And I thought, oh no. He didn't say even sit down. He said, this was really good management. He said, like, "I've put this thing on outside to show how cross I am, and I am a bit cross, but I did laugh at what you did, so never do it again. Now get out of my office."
Yeah, that's nice.
So that was like the version of me being sent to Sandringham, I think.
Yes.
I do fancy that Andrew hasn't exactly been let loose, has he? I mean, they'll go round for private din-dins because it's on the estate, isn't it?
Yeah. It must be strange though, because all the royal family are at Sandringham now, and they've sent just for Christmas Day they've had to send Andrew to Windsor, so they probably passed on the motorway, did they? All the king and everything going from Windsor to Sandringham, and then Andrew being sent in the opposite direction.
Would it have hurt to have Andrew there on the church steps with them?
I think so.
Would it have been bad, would it? Yeah,
I'll be honest with you, I think he should be in another country. Yeah, totally. I think it's a total disaster. Or in prison, as the way things are going on, he could well be in prison. It depends what more comes out. Or perhaps a foreign prison, yeah.
That's like Napoleon. You want to do a Napoleon on, you send him off to...
Elba.
Was it?
Island of Elba, I think.
Right. We'd send him there.
Yeah.
The only thing is, right, you know how he used to be Prince Andrew and now he's Andrew Mountbatten Windsor? That's not really much of a demotion, isn't it?
No, exactly.
I mean, if I changed my name to Jonny Mountbatten Windsor, that would be a promotion.
Yes. Yeah,
It's a nice name.
Yeah, no. And double barrel, why did it have to be double barreled like that?
Yeah, well, we know why, don't we? Because the Mountbatten bit's German. It's Battenberg, isn't it?
Yes,
My favourite cake.
Totally.
After with a cup of tea at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah. I have a story about that. My mother sent me out when I was a young child. She said, "Go and get some cake from the corner shop but this is in Burnley, you know."
Right.
And
Simon's from Burnley.
Yeah, in Lancashire.
In Lancashire.
And I brought it back.
Fascinating county. I love Lancashire.
Yeah,
I really like it.
I had an older brother as well, and I brought it back. You know, we're very poor. And she said, "Is it Battenberg?" And I said, "No, I've been carrying it like this." That's a trick stuff.
That's perfect.
I was only about 6 or 7 or something.
That's great. That's perfect, isn't it? I think it's a perfect time for us to take a break, get some composure back on the show, and see you in a bit.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A warm welcome to the show. It's your Morning Glory, and I'm Jonny Gould, and I'm proud to have Simon Danchuk as my newspaper reviewer this morning. Morning, Johnny, says Judith. Hello, Judith. Merry Christmas to you. Simon would make a great Reform MP. Always love having him on Talk. The sooner we get rid of Starmer and his flock, the better. Their policies have killed our country. Diversity isn't working. The King needs to concentrate on the majority of our country. Thank you, Judith, for that. Now, you have left the Labour Party. You are a member of Reform. And we've got an election coming up. Your leader has teased us all by saying somehow that he thinks it's going to be in 2027. We'll find out. Now, they're a bit inexperienced, and their Achilles heel, I think, is can they find 650 good people to be their prospective parliamentary candidates? Or will some of them be wingnuts who you want to cover your eyes when they go on the telly? And I'm thinking they need a bit of grist, a bit of experience in politics. Simon, they need you. Are you going to stand?
I'm not sure about that. I don't know. And they haven't started recruiting parliamentary candidates yet. They're just dealing with local elections.
They're having they're obviously looking around.
I don't know. Well, if they are, they haven't. If they are, they haven't asked me. That's for sure.
You haven't been invited. I've not been invited.
Absolutely.
Do you know who I am? No, but I mean, there's time to go. And where would you stand?
Yeah, that's a good question.
You'd like Burnley, wouldn't you?
Well, I live in London all the time now.
Right.
Yeah, I do like Burnley, I have to say. I mean, that's where I'm from.
Yes.
Though I represented Rochdale, which is relatively close.
Beautiful town
two
hall.
Lancashire towns. Oh, yeah, beautiful town hall. Yeah. Two towns close to each other. In London terms, they would be the same place, but in Lancashire terms, they're two very distinct towns with their own identity. But I live in London permanently now. So
how long have you been down here?
Well, on and off since 2010, but after coming out of Parliament 2017, my base has been very much London. We like living in London. Is you?
Yeah, I've lived here for 35 years, no longer. Anyway, whatever the number is, it's quite a long time. When we were kids, they used to talk about the brain drain, where basically people who had tertiary educations or IQs above 101 would leave their hometown and Billy Elliot down to London, which is what I did. Because, you know, there was a lot of broadcasting to be available in the Midlands, but of course it consolidated, and I wanted to be a national broadcaster. I had a bob on myself. I really wanted to, you know, be a Dick Whittington and sort of seek my fortune, and I never came back. And now it seems, into that vacuum, they talk about levelling up. The Tories did, you know, Boris Johnson and Michael Gove, etc., because that's a consequence of the fact that Manchester, Leeds, Newcastle, Birmingham needs a bit of demographic repair because a lot of people moved south.
That's a really interesting debate, I think. I have members of my family who've never visited London, never come to London, never mind live here, never even visited the
that
place.
bloke from Bryley had a red face. He'd never been to Wolverhampton.
Yeah, oh really? Yeah, no, that's interesting.
Oh, never been to Birmingham. Oh, you never been to Wolverhampton.
That's interesting.
He'd been to Dudley though, so he was obviously reasonably well travelled because there's a zoo there.
Yeah. Well, but this debate about regionalism that you've raised, I used to take the view that we need to push things back up north and invest more, concentrate less on London. But I think the reality is we're a small country. London is a dynamo that generates loads of cash, loads of money, loads of income for the country. And yes, some of that should go north, but let's be realistic about it. You know, Birmingham's not going to be turned into London. Manchester's not going to become London. London is an international, it's one of the top 10
it's the
international
top in Europe, isn't it? It's the top dog in Europe, and there's nothing. There's nothing Manchester can do. However, I was in Manchester recently, and I was amazed at the amount of skyscrapers that are going up, not just in the city centre, but around the city as well. And some of them, believe it or not, are not owned by Gary Neville.
Oh, really?
You know, so I mean, that's something, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a great identity as Manchester. It's a fantastic city.
Yes.
And let it be. You know, let it get on with what it's doing.
Yes.
And encourage it and enable it, and connect it better with London, etc.
It needs to.
But let's not. You know, Burnham's good at this. You know, woe is me, and things are so bad. Give us more cash. That's his job, I suppose. But let's be realistic. London is a dynamo of a capital city, a major international city,
absolutely
generating money for the country. We should celebrate that.
I must big up Birmingham as well, because it's a bit
I'm trying to avoid it actually, but
it's a beautiful. I mean, it's a really nice place, and it's built on Quaker traditions, and it's built on Scottish traditions of kind of Methodist hard work.
Some great architecture.
Yeah, it's just a great city, and it's had a real kick up the bum in terms of its council really going under, and obviously the Maccabi Aston Villa incident was an absolute travesty, and indeed a tragedy for the image of the city that needs to recover. But there is a private sector investment there that there's a kind of will that because it's a Midland city, it's neither here nor there. It's not the north, and it's not the Midlands. Not the south. That it has a slightly different financial makeup to the rest of the country, which always fascinates me. Good morning, Johnny, says Sean in Gloucester. Keith Starlin, I think he means Sir Keir Starmer, and this incompetent Labour Party's achievements is 5 million NHS appointments by cancelling 8 million, employment up by increasing unemployment every month, economic growth by driving us towards a recession, £150 off our energy bills by increasing them by about 500. The list is endless for these people. We need to get them out now. The tax situation is ridiculous. Again, this is investors. I'd rather you say who you were. It's ridiculous. The mansion tax is not the issue. You make the mistake of treating the housing asset class differently to other investments, which is what housing has become in the UK. However, for some reason, we can never accept if people lose money on houses. So what if a 77-year-old lady has to take refinancing and only gets £1.4 million for a house supposedly worth £2 million? I am sure she will live very nicely for the rest of her life. But that's not the point, is it? The point is that she's earned that. Why should a capitalist speculator nick it off her in a moment of her desperation or in terms of her economic vulnerability? You know, we need to protect people's right to be who they are. If they're rich or if they're poor, we have to protect people's ambitions, you know? So there are poor people who don't want to be cradled by the welfare state. There are poor people who want to get out of their circumstances. They don't want to be a place to be on benefits all the time and be in an environment where not only did they not work, but their dad didn't work either. They want to be able to sort of get out there and start earning a few quid and then maybe think about building their lives. And that includes rich people too, because their successful lives need to continue while they're active. I know that's what I feel, Simon.
Well, I agree with you. And an important point here is that this mansion tax is anti-aspirational, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the reality of it.
Yeah.
And I don't like the whole language around it. I mean, I'm not surprised that that's what's coming from Labour, that they're talking about a mansion tax, which is like tax the rich. As you were pointing out, you can live. I live in Pimlico. You could £2 million buys you a small two-bedroom flat.
Is it only two-bed now?
Well, you might get, you might get a three-bed flat on a former council estate. So
Right.
I agree with you. £2 million doesn't buy you very much. You wouldn't be a wealthy person living in Pimlico.
No.
And
imagine
the
tax
property.
on if you buy something for £2 million, you're paying £157,500 worth of stamp duty, which means that you'll never move again.
I think we need to get rid of these taxes. We talked about stamp duty, we talked about inheritance tax, now we've got a mansion tax. They're just thinking of ways of taxing people, different ways.
It's not right.
I mean, by all means, tax income, just keep it simple. You know, that's what we should be looking at.
That is Simon Danchuk. Simplify the tax system and have less of it, perhaps. Less government?
Oh, less government, yeah. It's bloated. Too many civil servants.
We'll talk about Simon and his ambitions for the future and what he's thinking about in context of the papers. Before we go to the break, Anne in Surrey has this pithy comment on voice note about the King's speech and Auntie.
Boxing Day, have I been transported to another planet or are you pulling my leg? You think that absolute tripe that spewed out of Charles' mouth yesterday about diversity being our strength was really good? Honestly, had you had too much sherry? Really?
No.
And you think the BBC, I mean, wow, I didn't even turn it on. Well, I turned on 2 minutes of that speech and I turned it off. I think you should go and work for ITV, honestly. Or you've had too much sherry, or you're winding me up. I actually think you're winding me up. But happy post-Christmas, mate. Cheers.
And I think the complete opposite. It was nice to have a BBC which was woke-free yesterday, and I don't believe in diversity because it's a problem for me and my community. It's like a red alert. So I didn't have too much sherry. I just support the King, and much of what he said was A-OK and sympathetic. And I'll explain why in a bit more detail in just a moment. One of my proudest moments here on Talk was explaining to an out-and-out Republican why I was a monarchist, and I even begun to change her mind on it. Stay tuned.
Some breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
That's something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
So this is a Talk exclusive we've been looking at.
I said, you take these cuffs off me and speak to me like a human being rather than a common criminal.
You're just left wondering, does these people who lead us actually hate Britain? Yeah. Do they not love our country and everything that we've stood for?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Going to zoom through your comments here. Johnny, Harry and Meghan, they do nothing for the people of Sussex or the UK, so they shouldn't have those titles, says Margaret from Yorkshire. I've done more for Sussex than them. Maybe I should have the title. I bought a flat there once. Yes, and I've paid my council tax on it too. Sharon says, hello Sharon Miller. Good morning, Johnny. I'm sick of this royal family. They're dysfunctional and we just need to get rid of them. They're costing the taxpayers so much money for what they're certainly not good value for money. Sharon's in Staffordshire. Sharon, I sympathise with that and I talk about their human frailties and indeed they're like you and I in many ways, but there is a settlement, a political settlement, which they are at the top of, which I think is very valuable. So, Simon,
yes,
I had Stella Stankidu in here, and she is a bit left.
I think I've met her, yeah.
She's very good and very articulate in many ways. The Greekest accent in Westminster she boasts. And she was telling me about why she was a Republican, but she had never considered this, which was that, and it was demonstrated on the King's speech yesterday, that we, apart from that D word, the diversity, we project our best wishes about what we hope Britain is upon the head of state in a way that the head of state in America or France, we can't, because they are divisive people and they do things which sometimes go tragically wrong and upset the Republic going into the future. So, you know, America will not be the same after Donald Trump leaves, and Macron has done one or two things which have really, really caused serious problems within their society. The King doesn't and can't do that. So we have a blessed settlement, and I think that and that alone is one of the many reasons, the chief reasons, why the monarchy is so important.
I think that's really interesting and really helpful, actually, in explaining how Britain, I think, has a unique model of governance.
Yeah.
And it includes the House of Lords. When I was younger and more lefty, I thought we should scrap the House of Lords. But once I entered Parliament and saw how it operates,
yes,
I think it's too big. There are too many lords. You could radically reform it, but it works. It might be it might look impractical and doesn't match other countries that have two elected chambers, but having an unelected and an elected one. And the point I'm getting to is that with the settlement, as you call it, and that's right, the monarchy, the House of Lords, the House of Commons, we have a unique system that works for Britain, and it's worked well for Britain. We shouldn't mess with it too much.
We have evolution, not revolution here, and it's remarkable, and it has been the consensus, not just for this country, but for the Commonwealth as well. I'm all for the Commonwealth as well. And if you don't believe me, look at how Paraguay thinks of Spain. They don't like it. They have their traditions in terms of their language. But when you go around a lot of the former colonies, there's still this affection for the mother country, even if it's a bit antique. We have a different feel about our Commonwealth to the ones that the Hispanics have for Spain.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. I'd meant to mention the Commonwealth in terms of this unique model that Britain's got, as well as mentioning the Lords and the monarchy.
Yeah.
I'd meant to mention the Commonwealth, but you're exactly right. My wife is Rwandan, right?
Right.
Yeah, and we spend quite a bit of time there. And they joined the Commonwealth. They went to Commonwealth country because it's special. And you're exactly right, that Commonwealth. And we came out of Europe. We should do more to celebrate the Commonwealth.
The Commonwealth
and
that we
do
have.
trade more with the Commonwealth. Africa, where much of the Commonwealth is, is a key in terms of investments and trade.
It's an amazing asset we have. That's Simon Danczuk. What a way to end the hour. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. And if you thought that was good, there'll be even more, so stay tuned to Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Oh, Merry Christmas to you and a very good morning to you. It is Boxing Day. It's the second day of Christmas. What's your true love given to you? That's what I want to know this morning. 0344 499 1000. I hope that we celebrate Christmas right up to January the 6th, because that's day 12, isn't it? We don't just pack up the Christmas tree because the big day has happened. Oh no, keep playing those Christmas records. Keep saying Merry Christmas to people, even when it's into New Year. Yeah, Happy New Year, but also Merry Christmas. You know, it's 12 days worth, isn't it? So, in this hour, it's been great to have Simon. Simon Danczuk was my first hour, and if you missed it, then obviously what you can do if you're watching on YouTube, you can scroll back or watch again or even listen again via the assorted Talk apps, Talk Radio and indeed Talk TV. You can find those on your mobile phones, and then of course YouTube is where we do a lot of our live broadcasting as well. Well worth it. Simon, now a member of the Reform Party, a former Labour MP. But now let's unpack some of the other stories that have been making the papers this morning. It's I mean, it's as if the world sped up for Christmas, and then there was a little lull because we enjoyed the peace and tranquility of Christmas Day. But now, what was breaking the news on the 24th is now very, very much part of the news agenda again, with a full scap of 26th of December newspapers. Thousands more homes to be hit by mansion tax. Tens of thousands of homeowners are being dragged into paying Rachel Reeves' new mansion tax because of the way people values homes will be assessed. And apparently experts are warning that properties could be overvalued by as much as 30 grand, leading homeowners being subjected to an annual surcharge of £2,500 as part of plans being drawn up to target homes worth more than £2 million. The revaluation, it's the biggest in more than 30 years, won't involve any large-scale physical assessment of properties. Instead, it'll be reliant on recent sales data, aerial maps and past planning applications to provide a valuation. And that, my friend, is going to produce some ridiculous injustices and some howling errors in valuations. I'll give you an example. My friend inherited a hotel in the Highlands of Scotland. Very, very lovely hotel. It was run by parents, and they're not with us anymore, and he doesn't really have the inclination or indeed the geographical presentation to do the job. So he got a remortgage, and they valued it based upon Zoopla, right? And they valued it at way, way more than it was worth. And he got his money in, and then, you know, that's how these things work. So to not actually have assessors do it properly is going to produce more and more injustices. So stand by for people who get a house valued at £2 million, which is like a shed. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but that is going to happen. So watch out for those ridiculous, honestly. They don't do it. No one does anything properly anymore, do they? Honestly. The system. The teacher likened to terrorist for Trump film. Safeguarding video officials seek prevent referral after videos were shown to A-level politics students. Okay? A teacher in an English school was accused of posing a risk to children and referred to the government's counter-terror program, after showing Trump videos to his US politics class. The teacher, who's in his 50s, has told The Telegraph he was likened to a terrorist after showing the videos, including one of Mr. Trump's inauguration, to A-level students. I think that is time to cue the curtain and introduce our friend, Senior Fellow of the New Culture Forum, Philip Keasley. Philip, a very good morning. Thanks for getting up this early to come with me on the show.
Oh, Johnny, it's great to see you and happy Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Day 2, Boxing Day. And the news agenda keeps going with this deep state attack on the will of the people.
It's just utterly insane. I feel as though I've had a day off from the insanity, and now I'm back. It's 7 o'clock in the morning. We're back to talking about the craziness of this whole, you know, Starmer's broken Britain, and there's our good friend Donald Trump.
There he is. Are we going to be carted off for showing those pictures of him?
Well, I mean, just thinking about the education story, I spent 25 years in education, higher education, so I do know how crazy it can be. And unfortunately, Johnny, this doesn't surprise me at all. This isn't about an individual going way over the top and complaining and then being kind of put in their place. This is the system that's entirely broken. This is the system that's completely and utterly politicized. This is propaganda. This is not education. The man was teaching about the US election, and he showed a video of, you know, the president of the United States of America. So if we are to deal with these things, we shouldn't be dealing with these things on a one-by-one basis. We should be looking at the source of the madness, I think, well, there are several sources, but one of the key sources of the madness is the education colleges, the student, the education madrasas, in a way, that are indoctrination camps, and we must dismantle those completely. So this is systemic, and it is madness. It's complete madness. You can't describe it in any other way.
Philip, I'm going to condense your explanation there, your definition of that, into a single syllabled word: the blob.
Yes, absolutely.
And, you know, these are people of around our age and younger who are in power and can't really be unseated, can they? This is a really difficult issue for our society to deal with because, for example, even if Reform did get elected alongside a Conservative coalition, the civil service would just fight them at every corner, wouldn't they? We'd have a real problem.
Yeah, I mean, we saw this with Brexit. We have a situation where we have a completely undemocratic system because the infrastructure which is in place to implement all of the things that we voted for simply works against us. And we see that time and time again. It's completely captured. It's completely ideological, Jonny. And we have a huge mountain to climb. There is no point in Reform sitting down and mulling up policy and working with Westminster think tanks and doing everything that, you know, any potential governing party should do, if all of that stuff is going to be completely undone, not just by the civil service, but by education, primary, secondary, further, you know, higher, all of that kind of stuff, by the media as well, all of the things that we've seen with the BBC over the last few weeks as well. That's part of the problem too. So this is a kind of multifaceted beast that is just attacking the British public time and time again. So I think Reform, the first thing that they need to do, absolutely 9 o'clock, top of the agenda, 9 o'clock on Monday morning, is how do we deal with this infrastructure? How do we take it apart? How do we stop it working against us? And how do we stop it abusing? I think that's what it's doing. The blob is abusing the British people. It's taken away our democratic right to be governed in the way that we want to be governed, because it's just not happening at the moment, and it hasn't happened for years.
It hasn't happened, and it's been enabled by a succession of perceived left and right-wing governments, possibly going back to Tony Blair, or do you think it's gone back even further, maybe into the John Major government? Where do you think this thing grew from?
Well, I think you can go right back to the post-war years, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I think this is an ideological thing. This is all about reconstruction. This is about reframing, revisioning Britain in a quasi-socialistic way. And you see the kind of the counterculture, the cultural revolution of the 60s and 70s. You see it kind of righting itself a little bit with the Thatcher government, but then falling away in the 90s and 2000s. So I think all of these things are competing. I think there's a sense of technological development that we haven't been able to kind of keep up with, and certainly over the last 10 or 15 years, social media has played a huge part in kind of dismantling the democratic process. But I think there's just a general kind of ethos, there's an ideological perspective that you can trace right back, and there is this sense of, you know, big government, big tax that we might talk about later on, you know, this big brother is watching you and it's all for your own good, you know, this is kindness. And of course, when you have a society that is defined by multiculturalism, we don't define ourselves as being British anymore. We define ourselves as being multicultural, being kind. You know, we have these British values, whatever they may be. So it becomes very, very difficult to have an identity as a society. And so you have these extra layers of bureaucracy and administration that essentially take away your rights and tell you what to do. And in a way, it's very difficult to make very, very complex societies work that have, tons of 800 people yesterday, I think, came over on small boats.
Wow.
Makes it very, very difficult for these societies to work without this level of ludicrous administration.
Philip, at the beginning of the show, I was lamenting 364 days of BBC output at the expense of one yesterday, which I really enjoyed, which was a BBC I used to remember, where they were sort of told to be on their best behaviour. Sit up straight, it's the day of the King's speech. Hello, I'm not behaving normally on the breakfast show because later on the King's going to tell us some very, very nice things that we're not used to hearing about faith and Christianity. And that was all right and fine. And then the rest of these, apparatchiks went off for their Christmas din-dins, and we got shown Peter Ustinov movies, which are completely unwoke from the sort of 1950s and 60s. And then what else was there? There was Bing playing the piano. And it was like, oh, this is really nice. It was a BBC that I really enjoyed. Now, of course, it'll be back to normal again. Well, I enjoyed the BBC output yesterday in a way that I'm not allowed to enjoy it any other day of the year.
No, it's bizarre, isn't it? It's almost as though we changed to being what we used to be for a very short period of time, and now there's the King, and now it will be back to the ordinary stuff today. Having just said that, you mentioned a Peter Ustinov film there, Johnny. I watched Evil Under. I tweeted about it last night, actually.
Yes, I watched it too.
I watched Evil Under the Sun on iPlayer yesterday with my family, with my parents. I'm over here in Prestwich in Manchester, and I was enjoying it. I was thinking it was great, and then I realised it was cut to ribbons.
Oh, really?
Yeah, everything that could be seen as sensitive or
oh no,
stereotype. It's Agatha Christie.
Oh, you've ruined my I thought that. Because on the telly yesterday, they had a beautiful lady walking downstairs in slow motion with a sort of swanky trombone. The beautiful ladies here. And I thought, this is stuff that would never get played. The world stops for this, men and women all looking at this beautiful 20-something lady. Was that in your version? Because it was on the telly.
It was the dialogue that changed, but it was very, very
okay.
And I suppose this is part of the problem, isn't it? They just do it very, very subtly. They don't tell us. They do it for our own good. So we're not racist. We're not misogynistic. We can't make these decisions for ourselves. And everybody is so sensitive that if anybody sees this kind of thing, then the country will stop tomorrow.
Yeah.
And up to this is patriarchal, isn't it? This is paternalistic. This is the whole thing. This is the whole problem with this culture. We are treated like children. We are infantilized, and it really needs to stop. Unfortunately, I can't see it stopping it in any way soon, unless, of course, the BBC gets a massive kicking from Donald Trump and things do have to change.
They might have to change. We've got the Royal Charter coming up, and is there any chance that they could be reformed hugely with that? I mean, could they lose their charter and come back as, like the Police Service of Northern Ireland changed their name from the Royal Ulster Constabulary? Could we come back and call them something else? Is there any chance that, the BBC, for its very famous branding, which has been trashed, I think, by itself, could come back as something else?
Well, there's always
Is there, or is the establishment just still too much in charge?
Well, there's a vague possibility, and I don't think it will happen just yet, but looking into the future, in the slightly longer term future, something will actually have to happen. Now, let's be clear about this, Johnny. I love what the BBC was. It was, it was the gold standard of journalism. It was very much part of who we are and who we were.
Yes, I was part of it.
Well, you were part of it, and you know
I was very proud to be part of it.
Yeah,
I would still be proud of it, but they would probably think, I'm not checking this for the moment, they probably think I'm a heretic. But I really want to be there, you know, because it would represent the Britain that I love and I believe in. But they've so far moved that I sort of feel like I'm exiled.
Yeah, I mean, this was part of our whole identity. It was part of the British identity, and very, very obvious things for people of our generation. You know, like we grew up with Top of the Pops. It was very definitely who we were. You know, for children watching that every week, the whole nation would watch that.
It was great.
So they've absolutely sullied their reputation massively, and it's such a shame that they've done that. But here we are. I mean, the real problem is, Johnny, that they just haven't kept up with changing times, and it is a model in many ways like the NHS. It is a model that is completely out of date and is not fit for purpose for Britain, you know, 2026 going into the future. So it might be a subscription service. It might be that, you know, certainly if people want to pay for what we've seen to be gross anti-Semitism, what we've seen to be lies in relation to the President of the United States, if people want to pay for that, all well and good. The point is that people shouldn't be forced to pay for that kind of stuff with a TV license, and it really is a catastrophic shame that we've come to this.
And made to be a criminal if you don't pay it as well. This is Sir Philip Keasley, Senior Fellow of the New Culture Forum. We'll play a bit of the King's speech in just a moment for our Philip to analyse. So stay tuned to Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A warm welcome to Morning Glory. It is a real privilege for me to be hosting this show, and I'm here until 10 o'clock. I'm also here tomorrow. Yes, I hear you cry. Yes, well, that'd be nice, and I'm looking forward to it. Now, we're here with Philip Keasley, Senior Fellow of the New Culture Forum. The King's Speech had a few little buzzwords in there, like the diversity word, but he said one or two other things which reinforced, I think, the fundamental difference with us as a monarchy and perhaps our cousins across the channel who are republics. Have a listen to I beg your pardon, King Charles.
In this, with the great diversity of our communities, we can find the strength to ensure that right triumphs over wrong.
Right, so that was the D word used there. And it's like, Philip, that was the only thing which was a real spanner in the works, because largely it was a message of peace, but that was a wrong un there, because there have been the most grievous attacks between one diverse community to another this year in a way that needs to be stopped in 2026. Ergo, diversity is a word that doesn't work anymore.
Yes, I think I was expecting him to say diversity is our strength there, and he almost kind of did that. But diversity is our challenge, obviously. And I'm actually speaking, Jonny, from Prestwich in North Manchester now, where the foiled, attempt at the biggest terrorist atrocity in our history, actually, on the mainland, may well have been carried out here. So it felt quite odd coming here on Christmas Eve and walking the streets and thinking what could have been. So I think, if anything, what the establishment needs to do, what the government needs to do, is deal with this issue. We need to be able to have this conversation that there is diversity does not work. Diversity in their sense, in this kind of multicultural utopia in which everybody gets along and everybody's lovely, and that really doesn't work. We have to be serious, and we have to understand the tensions and the dynamics in this incredibly complex country, and we have to protect very vulnerable communities. And we're talking about what the Jewish community of this country is, 200,000 people, just over.
Very small.
Yeah, very small, incredibly vulnerable, and incredibly frightened at the moment. So if you are talking about the glories of diversity, you are talking about a set of people who are frightened of walking the streets at the moment, who are often frightened of going into city centres on Saturdays because there are hate marches directed, towards them. The rhetoric is absolutely against them, whether they are Zionists or not. They've even got rid of the Zionist aspect now. It's just Jews, and nothing has been done about this for year upon year. We're talking here since October the 7th, 2023, and these things have happened pretty much every year. So I think it's time to get rid of the nonsense. It's time to get rid of the romance. But of course, they won't do that, because if anybody in power, if the elites and the institutions say, look, this hasn't worked, diversity is not our strength, it's a real challenge, then they have to look to the last 30 years and say, ooh, we got it wrong. All this mass immigration that nobody ever voted for, we got it wrong. We've put women and children at risk. We've got it wrong. There are so many undocumented males coming in from God knows where, and we don't know anything about them. We've got it wrong. So they're not going to say that. That's the problem. So we cannot have that honest conversation, or at least we cannot have it yet. And of course, nobody really expected anything else from the King's speech.
So I am willing to have a laugh with a stranger. And yesterday there was a bonhomie that maybe you don't get on any other day. So I wished a complete stranger at the end of my street a Merry Christmas. I made a quick judgment that he wasn't a lunatic and he was walking his dog. So I said, Merry Christmas, mate. I hope you're going to have a nice day in the morning, one of those Christmas morning walks. I wasn't in Sandringham. I'm not on Mountbatten, Windsor. And then we were having a little walk through the park, and he said, oh, thanks very much, nice small talk. And I was there with my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law's French, right? And she asks my missus in French, well, does he know him? And my wife said, no, he's just wishing him a Merry Christmas, as though in her low-trust society where she lives, they wouldn't countenance talking to a stranger. And Philip, I insist on, however naive or out of date this is, to maintain my high trust mentality in this troubled world we live in. I insist on it.
I think that's absolutely the way forward, in a way, because I think that's probably the most effective thing you can do. You know, we are limited in how we affect change, I think, and one of the things that we can do is really focus on the mechanics of a high trust society. Yes. So that is talking to people in the street. That is making people feel as though we are neighbours. This word community has been hijacked so much that I refuse to use it anymore. But neighbours, neighbourliness, neighbourhoods, and all that kind of thing are so massively important when people talk. That's one thing, but it's getting involved with the day-to-day running of the country at a local level. So it's getting involved with schools. You know, we've already talked about that ridiculous story about the teacher being referred to Prevent because he's showing Donald Trump. So, right, that you can deal with that kind of stuff if you're a school governor. You know, so get involved with schools, get involved with local politics, get involved with running there's that word again, community. This is what it's about. It's about re-establishing this high trust society that unfortunately we lost quite a long time ago, and there are pockets of it, and it's down to us to maintain at least the facade of that high trust society, because that is so important for the moment.
Absolutely. I wish for that. I pray for that. And Philip Keasley, you are a vital voice in that discussion. So I wish you and all your fellows at the New Culture Forum a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Not to mention your mum and dad in Prestwich as well. Have a good time.
Oh, thanks.
That is Philip Keasley here on Your Morning Glory. A very good morning. It's Christmas Day number 2, Boxing Day. I'm Jonny Gould. I'm in the chair until 10 o'clock this morning. And in a moment, we're going to talk about Labour's small boat's shame is revealed, according to The Express, as their chart shows the scale of the crisis in 2025. We're going to be talking to Tom Jones, Senior Fellow for the Centre of Migration Control. So stay tuned.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
And a warm welcome to your breakfast show in 2025. This is Jonny Gould in the chair between now and 10 o'clock. Now, Labour's small boats shame has been revealed by a chart showing the scale of the crisis in 2025. This is in your Daily Express. It's a damning chart, they say, and it's set to record the second highest total of people crossing the English Channel on small boats in recent years, with just a week of the year remaining. Labour government pledged to reduce the small boat arrivals by cracking down on smuggling networks. But as the year draws to a close, there are few signs of the government's policies actually working, because Home Office figures show the number of people arriving has climbed steadily all year, right up to this week. More than 41,000 people have now crossed the Channel in small boats this year, with 803 arriving on Saturday alone. A record number for a December day. When comparing data going back to 2018, December is usually one of the quieter months for Channel crossings because of the poor weather and the shorter day. Honestly. And I just don't think there's the political will to fix this, is there? I know a person who can answer this question. Let's talk to Tom Jones. He's the Senior Fellow for the Centre of Migration Control. He's also the author of the Potemkin Village Idiot on Substack. It needs a few commas in there. Tom, can you just tell us what the title of your Substack is so that we can find out? Morning, Tom.
Morning. It's the Potemkin Village Idiot.
That's it. Okay, just needed a comma in there or two. Commas are essential in meaning, aren't they? I always find.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tom, how depressed are you at the state of our borderless borders? I mean, we got 25 miles of water between Newhaven and Dieppe, even longer between Dover and wherever they come in from, and almost no desire to actually smash the gangs or whatever they think the cure for this is. Rwanda was got rid of. I mean, really, we are in a terrible state. It's demoralising for our country.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, frankly. I think one of the interesting things that hasn't been picked up on as part of this story is that we are on for the second highest, as you already mentioned, the second highest number of crossings on record. Actually very lucky to only get the second highest number.
Really?
If you look at the amount of people who are crossings per day and crossings per boat, really we should have had the highest year on record, but it's only been prevented by long spells of quite poor weather. I think it's interesting that every time we get those spells of poor weather, Labour outriders are posting the Channel crossings per day down to 0. But it has been absolutely awful. Starmer's plan to control illegal migration by smashing the gangs has, as we can see, basically had absolutely zero effect whatsoever.
Because they don't really want to fix it. Is that a fair allegation?
I think that's absolutely true. Labour are stuck in a very difficult position on this, which is fundamentally the real way to tackle this is actually to address the pull factors, and the pull factors are things like an overly generous welfare settlement, an overly generous asylum settlement, and too easy a path to permanent settlement in this country. But those are things that the base of the Labour Party are very passionate about defending, about keeping, and about not basically making it more difficult for people to come here and settle here. And so it's a problem that the Labour frontbenchers really don't want. So what they've done is to get round that problem, they've made it out as if it's some great other, the people smuggling gangs that they can just crush, and then that'll be the end of it. But obviously, as we've seen this year, it just doesn't work.
So what can fix this? Because if there's no political will from our incumbent government to truly fix it, and that we're going to see numbers continue to alarm us here at home. Can it only be a change of government, or is Shabana Mahmood really as good as her word on this? Is she really to the right of our Labour Party? I mean, really, you know, who are we dealing with here?
Well, I think Shabana Mahmood on migration is to the right of the Labour Party, but I think, in fairness, that's damning with slightly faint praise. Really, what Shabana Mahmood is trying to do is coming up with very tough-sounding programs on illegal migration, but actually making legal migration much easier. And so the track here will be basically get people onto legal migration tracks as soon as possible, make legal migration as easy as possible, which they are predicting will then reduce the number of channel crossings, which are obviously very visible, and control basically the perception of migration that way rather than control migration itself. In terms of what they could do, really, I think it is going to need to be a change of government. I don't think this government has the will. Even the people who are in there, like Shabana Mahmood, who maybe do want to control immigration, simply can't get it through the party. I think there needs to be change of government. There needs to be a government that is looking at the pull factors that are bringing people here, as well as tackling the systems by which they get here, and that is obviously the gangs.
So the pull factors are benefits, the perceived comfort of the Premier Inn or any other hotel chain you can mention, and I presume the fact that London is so very, very multi-ethnic that they might have significant amounts of cousins and friends of that already live here who may indeed be established that can find them work on the black market, notwithstanding also the fact that English is the most important international language in the world, and people can get on here better than perhaps they can in Denmark, which we seem to be using as an example for us. It's a completely different dynamic here, isn't it? This is just summarise the pull factors here for us.
So the pull, well, you've done my job for me, frankly, very well.
Good.
The pull factors are a benefit system that is for an incoming asylum seeker very, very generous, frankly. Also, very high rates of asylum application acceptance.
Right.
So I think at one point we were okaying 78% of Albanian visas, and the next country was France, and we're okaying less than half of that number.
Right.
You are completely right. English is a big draw. That's a draw in certain countries, places like Afghanistan that have obviously a notable number of English speakers. There are lots of people coming in who don't speak English, frankly. And obviously there are a large number of countries, places like Senegal, that speak French, and that's a draw for them to go to France as well. And one of the other things is, because our essentially our systems, our enforcement systems are so lax, actually it's relatively easy for people smuggling gangs to bring people to this country and then essentially force them into modern slavery to pay back their channel crossing. And that's one of the big issues, really. We have a kind of gap in our law enforcement, where it's very easy for people smuggling gangs to operate a British side of their business, and that makes it very, very profitable for them.
I remember getting pelters when I was a Sky News reviewer in 2013, looking at the many pleasure harbours that were being built in the Thames across the south coast, like, for example, Brighton Marina or Sovereign Harbour, and thinking, all you've got to do is get one of these private boats, get a cover over the top of 2 or 3 people, and then they could land in, by the Harvester in these nice little places, and then the person could go, there you go, off you go, mate, and they'll give them £1,000, and they could literally run onto, the bus going to London, find their local community, and you'd never ever see or hear them again because no one would ever check. and I got pelters, like people saying, "Stop giving them the idea," as though I was the first person to have thought about that amongst the migrants. And here we are, a decade or so later, and I'm still not sure that they're not coming in from other places. They always seem to focus on Dover, but I mean, surely, I mean, our coasts are wide enough; they could come in anywhere, couldn't they? Couldn't they?
Yeah, potentially. I think it's interesting.
Private boats, little places.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, actually. Last time I was on this marvellous channel, I was with Alex Phillips, and we were talking about a very dated story, which was that you had a lorry load of migrants. And it'd been years since I'd heard of a lorry load of migrants. A real blast from the past. But, you know, there are other means of illegal entry that people are coming in. And one of the developing problems that we're going to have to watch out for are visa overstayers. Legal visas have become so easy to get that they're essentially being used as a kind of back door to stay in this country beyond their visas. It's particularly a problem with students. And I think we're going to have a real big problem in the future with that being one of the main points of illegal entry into this country.
Tom Jones, listen, thank you very much indeed for coming on the show. Tom is Senior Fellow for the Centre of Migration Control. Really do appreciate your comments on that this morning. 0344 499 1000. Join in the debate. And we're going to talk to the inheritance tax of farmers, the tax fiasco which ended up in the suicide of one older farmer, the name of John Charlesworth. He was interviewed by Kevin on this station as well. Very, very sad, very disturbing story, because his son Jonathan said that had the reform happened a little bit earlier, then his father would still be with us. Isn't that a tragedy? So we're going to talk to Matt Cullen. He is a beef farmer. He's a fourth generation farmer based just outside of Canterbury. We're going to be talking about the blessed relief of increasing the inheritance tax ban from £1 million to £2.5 million right after this.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
So in doing some of research for the next item on your show, I was leafing through the Daily Telegraph, and then I just got slightly delayed by this beautiful picture of the Prime Minister of Italy. She did this on Instagram yesterday. It's Giorgia Meloni wishing everyone a Buon Natale, Merry Christmas there. Anche a te famiglia, which means and to you and your family. Nice picture. She's all right, isn't she? You know, I mean, I don't normally have crushes on world leaders because there's just not the talent that I require. But when stop, Johnny. Right, now, this is serious because we're going to talk about the inheritance tax and the assorted tragedies that have occurred in the vacuum between the government's very cruel £1 million tax band, which would have affected so many farmers in their bid to try and pass it through to their next of kin, and their U-turn, their latest U-turn, which takes it up to £2.5 million. So Keir Starmer has presided over a record number of farming closures. I mean, this is an issue of national security. Food security is national security. Duh, right? His death tax on farmers made thousands of rural businesses unviable. So a total of 6,270 agriculture, forestry and fishing businesses have shut their doors since Rachel Reeves announced farming assets would be subject to 20% inheritance tax from 2027, from £1 million upwards. The estimates from the ONS, which cover the year from October 2024, when the policy was announced, are the highest on record and follow the Chancellor's maiden budget, which imposed new death duties on farm owners and entrepreneurs. And now it's been increased to £2.5 million. It's not the end of the story. We had our friend Josh Wright on, didn't we, a couple of days ago, James Wright, saying that he wanted it banned altogether. So we're going to talk to a very typical farmer who has benefited from his farm being in his family now for 4 generations. He's a beef farmer based just outside Canterbury, and we're going to say a very good morning to Matt Cullen. Hello, Matt.
Good morning. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. Merry Christmas, mate.
Merry Christmas to you, mate.
Now, our previous guest, and his surname was Kelly, was a fantastic... James Kelly was a turkey farmer. He says he's not sick of the sight of turkey. In fact, he's been eating it for the last 3 weeks. But he also said, I'm also going to have beef during Christmas. So that's good news for you. That's music to your ears. How's the beef market on Turkey Day?
Well, I mean, at the moment, the beef job, as put it, is reasonably well, but that is a demand basically, and there's been a lack of demand across Europe,
right,
and across the globe, and it's doing, and it's been, the price has held up quite reasonably well over the last year. It's dropped back slightly a bit, but yeah, for the last year, it's been as good as it's been for a very long time, and even the sheep price has been as good. But then we go to the other scale, to the cereal boys, and they're having a terrible time. I mean, price of wheat is they're selling for now is the same price they were selling in 1985.
Oh yeah, so, why is that? What's going on?
Well, they say it's the global markets that are causing it, but I think that it's really down to the middlemen. It's the buyers, it's the grain merchants, it's the millers. Obviously, there was a big fluctuation around what was happening in Ukraine,
sure,
and what was going around and going to be released. But yeah, I mean, at the moment, I mean, cost of production to produce wheat is 4 times fold than what it was in 1985, and they're receiving the same money for their wheat now. I mean, it's just ludicrous. And then when you've obviously got what you've just discussed about the inheritance tax on top, this year has just been it's been a disaster.
It's been terrible. So just pegging back here, you just mentioned there that the price of wheat is the same as it was 30 years ago. No, 40 years
40
ago.
years ago.
40 years ago, right. But of course, the process of making the wheat is 4 times as expensive.
Yep.
Does that explain why things like Weetabix are very, very expensive, for example?
Well, I'll tell you why Weetabix are very expensive, and that's down to supermarkets.
Right, okay.
You know, you only have to look at all the supermarkets' profit. These profits, and there is a real deception about, oh, farmers are rich, they're getting all the money. Look, food inflation has gone through the roof. They're getting it all. We're not.
No.
It's all the middle people.
Oh.
It's all the supermarkets. See, the supermarkets are very good at doing, as you've seen at Christmas at the moment, veg really cheap, lower than the cost of production.
Yes.
But your more luxury items is where they go and put the rest of the money on. So they start with a loss leading item like your fruit and veg, thinking, oh, I'm having a real bargain here. But your chocolates, your fizzy drinks, your luxury items, that's where they make their money back. And you only have to look at every supermarket's profit over the last year and what their CEOs get paid, and it's a disgrace.
Is this why, Matt, we are seeing the growth of farmers' markets into town? Of course, food provenance is a growing thing for people. People want to know where their beef comes from. But is it also a way of you going straight to market and keeping a bit more profit and also involved in your cost of production?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why there's been a massive growing, as you just said, in farmers' markets, farm shops, and a lot more the public. Yes, you will be paying a bit more for that, but you know you've got the traceability. You know that that money is going back to that farmer. We can reinvest in the farm and in the community, and that's how we're doing it. We're not going into big shareholders. So that's why there's been a big surge on farmers' markets, small farm shops. People have had to diversify on their farms because, as I say, prices have been so low,
Yes.
you cannot function without diversifying. So a lot of farms now have done farm shops to help them get along, and that's been a real, gear changer.
I've noticed one particular cheese manufacturer is selling his goods into farmers markets, and he's got one of the most, spectacular brands out there. He's called Jonny Gould. So, it reminds me, oh, well, that's my name. Very, very strong. Very, very strong. Good old Jonny Gould from Somerset. But now let's talk about the IHT here, the inheritance tax. And they've been quite skilled here because it reduces by half the amount of farms affected. So it seems to me, actually, Matt, that some of the bigger acreages are not out of the woods yet.
Look, I mean, for a farmer I can talk that was going to be affected by the inheritance tax was such a low headstone at the start of it. I mean, the news that came on Tuesday, was great news for lots of small, vulnerable farmers. It was brilliant news. It doesn't go far enough at all, because all the middle-sized farms are still going to be clobbered by this. It doesn't get them off the hoop. Look, if the government think that they've done something clever, which they've tried to do something clever by releasing it just before Christmas, to think that the farmers are going to go away and we're going to forget about it and we're all going to be lovey-dovey with Labour, that's a big mistake.
They're mistaken.
They are mistaken. It's not at all. It's not going away. We still want a better deal because, as I say, this protects the very small, vulnerable family farms, but the middle-sized core farms that still are going to really have to take the brunt of it and going to have to sell off land and parts of the farm, they're the ones that are now going to clobber it. We always said out the start that this should have been well over 10 million. This should have been well up to the 15 million mark to get the loopholes to stop the ones that they wanted to stop. This was a death tax on all family farms below that threshold, and it was just ill thought out policy. And this is where I came back to the other day on the show here, saying this is Whitehall civil servants coming up with ludicrous policies for the government to exercise that they have never ever worked on a farm. They don't get the countryside.
They're townies, Matt. They're townies. They don't understand you.
And the trouble is, unless I stand to be corrected, there isn't a single Labour MP that has actually started a business up from scratch, run a business, like farmers have to. And not that, farmers' businesses make a 1% return. There isn't another business out there that functions on a 1% return.
No, it's incredibly tough, and I have complete sympathy for you as a former SME person who picked up my business from one contractor and moved it on. Matt Cullen, I wish you every success, and I hope you continue the debate, and I hope you continue to build on behalf of the farmers, and we can get some proper reform here so that businesses can continue to prosper. Food security is national security.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A warm welcome to Morning Glory. I am Jonny Gould. It's a real honour, a real privilege to be hosting this show. I know it's history, and I know how important it is for you, dear listener, dear viewer. So here we are, 03444991000. It's going to be renamed in the new year. It's going to be called the Jeremy Kyle Show. I wonder who's going to present it. It's got to be Jeremy, hasn't it? Jeremy Kyle will be joining you Monday to Thursday, and then Mark Dolan will be here as well at weekends, won't he? Friday, Saturday and Sunday, being very urgent in that Mark Dolan kind of way. And who knows, maybe I'll be here as well. I'd love to be with you, maybe when they take hollybobs. You never know your luck. 03444991000. Mick has tweeted us, and he says this government has no soul and no conscience. They're only concerned with virtue signalling to their globalist cult at Britain's expense. There will be a judgment day. That judgment day will probably be in the form of a general election. It's not for a long time, is it? It's like, what, 2029 at the very latest. Although Nigel Farage teased us, and he said, I don't know how he can come to this conclusion, maybe he'll explain to us at some point, that he thinks there'd be an election in 2027. We'll find out. Malcolm and Hart says this pithy observation. Good morning to you, Malcolm. Merry Christmas. Johnny, if the English language is such a pull factor for these illegals, how can we spend a fortune on translation services? Thanks for that. Yes, and same from Sharon. You see, great minds think alike, big spirits. If these people come here because they speak English, well, tell me why we're spending millions and millions of pounds on interpreters. And now, John in Wallington has made this religious edict for you. Johnny, in keeping with the true meaning of Christmas, can you please mention what we know as Boxing Day is actually St. Stephen's Day, the Feast of Stephen? From John in Wallington, deep and crisp and even, indeed, indeed. So look, the papers have been excellent today, haven't they? There's so many stories knocking around. Thousands more homes are going to be hit by the mansion tax. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Whenever they do these valuations, they always make them a bit future-proof, if you know what I mean. They kind of lob an extra valuation on them that they're not really worth. And in this marketplace, where you can't always sell a house at the price you want, this is a very, very cynical attempt to try and get everyone in to the £2 million bracket, as many as they can. So tens of thousands of homeowners face being unfairly dragged into Rachel Reeves' new mansion tax. And they're not mansions, are they? As Simon Danchuk said, he lives in Pimlico, and he said you can only get a 3-bed flat there for £2 million. Experts have warned that properties could be overvalued by as much as 30 grand, leading to homeowners being subject to an annual surcharge starting at 2.5 grand. Already paid council tax, which is enough, isn't it? Oh, I tell you what, a poll shock for Starmer now, because apparently 1 in 3 Labour voters thinks the Prime Minister should go. OK, so we're going to talk to political commentator Joanna Bell on the show now. Joanna, Merry Christmas. Good morning to you.
Merry Christmas. Good morning. Hope you're having a good Christmas.
Oh, Joanna, I'm having an amazing time. I'm having a busman's holiday here. I'm working. I've got a shirt and tie on far too early in the morning for a day off, and I'm having a great time.
It was a lovely tie, I have to say.
Thanks very much.
Very striking.
Do you like it? I didn't get dressed. I didn't get dressed in the dark. Honestly, I had a real think about it.
It looks like DNA.
It looks like what? Sorry, Joanna.
DNA.
It looks like DNA. Yes, I suppose it does. I suppose it does. That biological bombshell with Joanna. Now, listen. The one thing we know about Keir Starmer as Prime Minister is that he absolutely loves his job. He loves it. He jets around the world being a superstar in India and the United States, meeting my friend Donald. Can I call you Donald? No, you can't. And great to see you. Now get back in line with all the others. But people are saying that 1 in 3 Labour voters thinks he should go. And there's two hopes here. There's no open Bob hope, because it actually is very difficult to unseat an incumbent Labour leader, unlike your Tories.
Well, this is the thing. And, you know, he had a very large majority. He's got 150, but he cannot control his backbenchers. They're threatening to vote against the government. They don't want any reduction in social welfare. You know, he can't reduce tax because they like to tax and spend. And, you know, he gave away the Chagos Islands, costing, you know, billions of pounds. It was a terrible idea.
Yeah.
And, you know, the ever-increasing tax burden, the ever-increasing welfare, the, you know, asylum seekers, the hotel bills, you know, and, you know, the excessive pay rises for union members and public sector. It's crazy what he's done. And now West Streeting and Angela Rayner are threatening to take over. And that would be out of the frying pan and into the fire.
Yeah.
For, you know, for UK, actually, it's probably better keeping Keir in situ, because it can actually get a whole lot worse.
Joanna, we were warned right at the start of his premiership that he had this huge and unwieldy parliamentary estate of 411 Labour MPs, which even in the early days, before he started saying clangers over Southport when he had like this little sort of mini honeymoon period, that actually there would be the potential for rebellion when things went wrong, because you can't really control that amount of MPs in such a broad church that Labour so obviously is.
I'm like, he can't do it. And, you know, he's a moderate compared to some of these guys and his backbenchers. I mean,
is he a moderate?
Well, compared to some of these guys, these left-wing zealots, I mean, seriously, yeah. I mean, he's definitely a moderate compared to them.
Yeah.
But he's really, his hands are tied because he has to appease all of these back who really tax and spend. And I think he definitely wants to stop spending, but he can't, because if he doesn't, then they're going to revolt against him and he's going to be out of a job.
You see, Rupert Lowe MP said to me on the show the other day, he said he was trying to explain why he thought Jeremy Corbyn was a decent man. And he said, the thing about Jeremy Corbyn is you actually know what he thinks because he says it, and he has the conviction to say what he really believes, whereas Starmer doesn't. And that's why I ask the question again, Joanna, is he a moderate? He presents himself as a moderate because he's kind of one of those consensus leaders being beaten by the left and the right of his party at all times. But, you know, is he not really of the human rights lawyer background, which is in many cases quite extreme? His recognition for Palestine was a rather revealing policy, wasn't it?
Yeah, but, you know, I think that, again, he doesn't really believe that. I think he sits between, I mean, he said before, you know, on one hand, he, you know, is pro-Israel, his wife is Jewish, and then the other hand, he's recognizing Palestine as its own state. And I think all of this is really just, you know, currying favor with his backbenchers.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think he actually believes...
Really? So why did he do it? It's very damaging.
Because he wants to hold on to his position as the Prime Minister. And he knows that
doesn't work, though, Joanna.
Well, that's the thing. But, you know, tell him that if it can get him a few more, you know, years out of his premiership, then he's going to say whatever he can to keep there. And you said he's a barrister, but, you know, traditionally barristers, you know, they fight for, you know, whatever side they're getting paid from. Isn't that the way? You know, so he's getting paid. So he's going to say whatever he has to say to keep as in number 10. And that's how it is. And, you know, he doesn't really care, I don't think. I think he's just desperate to hang on in there.
We've arrived at a situation where they have created a thought system where basically you're there only to try and save your own skin. And that has been projected into society. Whereas, wouldn't it be lovely if the necessity being the mother of invention, where we had a lower tax environment, less government, so that it enabled people, both rich and poor, to be able to build their lives in a more productive way, and that self-interest could therefore be projected into national interest. But instead what we have is the total opposite of that. People trying to protect themselves against the very excesses of an overspending government.
Well, this is the thing, you know, and it you know, the friction, it's hard to solve this conundrum because, you know, like you said, I mean, 41,000 people came small boats last year. They're trying to contain this issue. You know, there's an army barracks being set up now for all of these asylum seekers, mostly men, to come to Crowborough.
Oh, I talked to Crowborough Shield the other day. What a miserable, terrible story that is, and it's the tip of the iceberg. It's going to be in other towns around the country. It's actually an army cadet base as well. What tragedy for that town.
This is the thing, and you know, it's a lot of people say, oh, you know, you have to house them, and you do have to house them, and fine, they're great. It's great that they're being moved away from hotels, and you know, the taxpayers not fitting those colossal bills. But the people in these small little villages are naturally very scared that there's hundreds of men, you know, young men in these barracks near their children, and our people are going to be scared to send their daughters to school because it has happened that, you know, young girls have been attacked. And that's not to say that every asylum seekers. But, you know, when you lock all these young men up in small confined spaces, they are going to out and try and, you know, create whatever.
Create problems and disrupt a high trust society. Let's talk about that in a little bit more detail, because it's called in the headlines, Labour's small boats shame. It's revealed a bombshell chart, as they call it, in the scale of the crisis in 2025. And you mentioned it, that more than 41,000 people have now crossed the channel in small boats this year. 803 arrived last Saturday alone. That's a record number for a December day when comparing data going back to 2018. Now, of course, it's cold in December, so it's usually one of the quietest months for channel crossings because of the poor weather and shorter days. Joanna, I remember when elections were always about the economy, stupid. They were always about how you would improve the pound in your pocket, how you could improve your own personal finances, how you could improve your job prospects, how you could get your kids trained, just generally good stuff about building our country. And now it's always about immigration. We've sort of, the country is at a tipping point, and that is why we are having this broader choice of governments, some of them a bit too extreme for British people's tastes.
Well, look, I mean, you know, Johnny, it's not the only place that this is happening across Europe. People are voting for far-right parties to solve this asylum seeker problem, and should be thinking of the economy, and people should be voting, you know, based on how much money they have in their pockets. But it seems to be that the biggest concern of voters is asylum seekers and people who were typically left-wing, and you know, we should be helping people from war-torn countries, but a lot of these people are economic migrants, and that's what the problem is that they're coming over here to enjoy the spoils of what the government's giving them. And if there is one positive thing about this army barrack or the cadet barracks, and is that, you know, they're going to be out of the hotels, and that bill won't need to be paid. But also, it's really important that people are deterred from coming over to these shores. So I think that being in an army barracks is probably less attractive than being in a luxury hotel.
Right. Well, I mean, you know, what's good news for people who live in towns and cities where there's a small hotel is very, very bad news for Crowborough. But I take your point. Joanna Bell, thank you very much indeed for joining us. That is Joanna Bell, political commentator. Your comments, please, 0344 499 1000. Bearing in mind that we spoke to the head of Crowborough Shield and talking about the misery that is going to befall their high trust town. And again, exactly as what Joanna said, you know, how are you going to get your girls home from school at 4 o'clock in the winter when it gets dark? You're going to have to escort them from the school gates, walk home with them, or get them in a car. How are you going to sell your house when you're near the barracks? Do you want to move there? Did you just buy a house there? All these kind of things are deeply depressing, and the unintended consequences of these policies, where they just dump their national policies on a small town, it really is. The world's gone mad, hasn't it? That's why we're here. This is Talk. I'm Jonny Gould. We're going to talk about the King's Speech in just a sec. Stay tuned.
the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. Watching and listening to Talk just got easier. There's now only one place for the home of common sense. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A warm welcome to your breakfast show here on Talk. It's Boxing Day. What are you doing at Boxing Day? Do you come out of the shackles of Christmas Day with the fight over the remote control? Are you glad to be getting out? Are you glad that you might be heading for the sales on one of the busiest days of shopping? Are you queuing up at the door now, ready to go into a shop for those bargains, tripping over the security guard, knocking him over, buying the cheapest, blouse you can find? I wonder, 03444991000. Or are you staying home and listening to the lucid debates that we have here on Talk? I hope you are. I hope you're enjoying your the start of your day here. The King's speech. What did you think of it? He's, on some things he was very good in terms of he talked about different communities that feel threatened. He talked about the Jewish community in some detail by putting some what we call underlay. He put some pictures, very significant pictures, underneath his discussion without mentioning who they were. For example, he was walking in to the synagogue in Manchester with Rabbi Daniel Walker as a moment of solidarity with the Jewish community. And then, of course, just seconds later, there was a shot of the entrance to Bondi Beach as well. But then he talked about diversity. As Philip Keasley said earlier on in the show, he didn't quite say diversity is our strength, but he sort of still believes in it. But as Mike Neville said on my show a couple of days ago, he said, what's the point of diversity if one minority attacks another? There isn't any. So, are we going to get rid of the D word? There was some good and there was some bad. He clearly wants to talk about more integration with Europe. We need to be friends again with our friends in Europe. I thought it was a very composed television broadcast, but let's find out what the former head of Royal Protection thinks. Let's say hello to Di Davis and say Merry Christmas. Di, how are you?
Good morning and happy Boxing Day to you. Nice to be with you.
Nice to be with you, Di. Thank you very much. Now, obviously, King Charles. Very composed television broadcast, I thought. But some of the things that he said were problematic. What he believes in may not exist anymore. For example, diversity. What did you make of his speech?
It's an interesting one. I think it's a bit like the curate's egg, really, as you said, and others. They're good in parts and perhaps not so good to others. As a historian now, I'm interested that it's nearly 100 years since we started this tradition, if you like, with George V back in Sandringham. And it spoiled his Christmas because he was so nervous, apparently. It really spoiled his Christmas. And he couldn't even go out and shoot those bestie birds in the sky. He was so nervous. So
that's awful.
It was very, very awful. But it's a bit like Andrew, really. He can't shoot anymore because those nasty policemen have taken his gun license away.
Oh, I see. I thought you were about to say something saucy. Right, good.
Well,
Thank goodness for that. You've redeemed yourself.
No, thank you. No, I won't say anything saucy. It's too early for saucy, even for me. But seriously, he's on a journey. I think he'd like the rest of us to go on a journey, a pilgrimage, as he calls it. And as I say, some of it was caring, But I've been reading some of the reviews, and people have said, well, with great respect now, 3 years ago, 10.2 million watched him. He's down allegedly now to about 5 point something out of a nation of nearly 70 million. So perhaps tells you something how relevant or not he is to the vast majority in this community.
But hold that page, Di, on that, because of course we don't watch things live anymore. And I would like to see what that aggregate audience number does over the next week or so. So we might find that only 5 and a bit million watched it yesterday. But of course, the BBC iPlayer and the ITV iPlayer, whatever it's called, will continue showing it. People will continue to download it, and then it'll be on YouTube. So it might get up to more significant numbers. That's the thing. People don't watch it in the same way that they used to.
Well, possibly you're right. I don't take issue with what you say, but it is relevant because 3 years ago, people had the same digital availability.
That's true.
I merely point out that it is now down to far less out of a nation, as I say. But worldwide, I think in some respects, he's more highly regarded worldwide because he's very articulate. He can put his points of view, whether you agree with them or not, articulately. And I think in 10 minutes, he tried his best. And as I say, you know, he did get across quite a lot. And it shows because we're talking about it.
Absolutely.
How relevant it is if you're struggling in this day and age to have a billionaire king actually articulate what you should or shouldn't do. And I think those on the left will take some issue with him standing there pontificating, whilst the royalists will say, what a wonderful man he is, what a wonderful family they are, and how good they are for Britain. It's an interesting one, and I, in my own mind, actually think, having been discussing widely the issue of Andrew and why he hasn't been prosecuted or why he hasn't been investigated, there was no mention of that. I think he could have mentioned difficulties in all families, including his own, and how he's tried to do his best. But there's a lot more to come out. It'll be very interesting, as far as I'm concerned, what more revelations will come out, and what did he know as the king? Because he must have known a great deal, because
he must have done, yes.
He is advised by the security services. He's advised by those in the highest level of government. So to have done what he did initially 5 years ago, I wonder what information has been there all along. And I say that as an investigator, as somebody who's called out the Met for not investigating, not even interviewing his brother on a variety of different areas. And it can go back years and years. So to me, there are so many questions to be asked about his moral compass. His brother's moral compass certainly is all over the place. And people often say, well, Andrew hasn't been found guilty. Well, he has been found guilty in the court of public opinion. And every item that comes out now adds to the fact that he was a pretty dreadful character. And I think the king was placed in a difficult position. But it's an interesting one. And so we're all on a journey. He calls about being compassionate. Well, some would argue he hasn't been that compassionate or forgiving as far as his brother's concerned.
On one level, that's absolutely right. He's been stripped of every honour, of every birthright that he had bestowed upon him, all the admiralty stuff. But again, there's this other sort of frequency of their relationship, which is that he hasn't been cast out. He's been asked to move to Sandringham. So he's still literally being looked after inside the nest, isn't he, Di?
Yes, he is. But it's difficult with respect to everyone and their opinion. What else are we meant to do until such time as either the authorities, be it the police, the tax authorities, or anyone else who could conduct a proper investigation into this man and his wife, until we know fully what else is the king to do with him, frankly. He's chucked him out of his home where he's lived for 20 years. And again, I come back, the king says we should all act with compassionate forgiveness. I'm not sure on behalf of the many, many victims of Epstein, and indeed allegedly Andrew himself, how much forgiveness we should give, because I think when you're in his position of privilege, you should be held to account. And I'm not sure so far, for whatever reason, those in authority have held him to account, because I always say, if you don't question people, you'll never find evidence.
No.
And unfortunately, for whatever reason, and they haven't explained their reason, the authorities at whatever level have not explained why, if it was you and I, and we were accused of serious offences, as you know, and you're...
I'd be cancelled. I'd be hauled over the coals.
You would be. But
they wouldn't change my name to Mountbatten Windsor either. I can tell you that for nothing, Di.
Well, it wouldn't change my name. And I merely say this as somebody who takes a great interest in royalty protection, the history of royalty.
Sure.
I lecture on it, you know, because I find them fascinating, and I find the history. And what is important, one of his important words to me was learn the lessons of history.
Yes.
And I always say that, and certainly when I was protecting the royal family, I felt it important to know the history of royalty protection and how many attacks there have been. Now we're seeing the royal family under attack because of the actions of this man. And again, I don't get any pleasure from it, but equally so, at my age, I think I can call out and say to my former colleagues, get your act together, go and interview him, and for once and for all, interview those of my colleagues who were with him, and so we can establish the truth, because I'm fed up of people saying he denies everything. Well, he would. So the people to properly investigate it are my former colleagues, if they feel they can, or if the establishment at whatever level allows them to.
Di, that's fascinating insight. A quick 20 seconds here, because I've got to take a break. And I want to know about Beatrice and Eugenie. Was it a good decision for them to sort of hang out with the royals and not Daddy and Mummy?
I think they know which side their bread is
buttered on. Yes, so that makes it very, very clear. Di, thank you very much.
That's my cynical view, anyway.
Well, it's good to be a bit cynical, isn't it? And it's good to ask those questions. You have answered them very well indeed. Thank you very much, Di Davis, former head of Royal Protection, here on Talk. Stay tuned. We're going to talk to Nicola Whittaker in just a moment, so stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile. and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome along. It's Morning Glory here. I'm Jonny Gould. I'm here till 10 o'clock, and then Phil Dave takes over in this chair. Now, more than 1 million people worked on Christmas Day, so spare a thought for Christmas Day workers, including the clergy, says a union chief. Should we talk about that with the Associate Director of HR Consultancy for Peninsula? Say good morning to Nicola Whitaker. Hello, Nicola.
Good morning.
Good morning. Well, you know, we do live in a complicated society, and the buses still need running. The underground or the train services sort of knocked off about 8 o'clock on Christmas Eve. But life's like that, man. I've worked Christmas Day. It's just the way it is.
Exactly. I think there's always this misconception that people are entitled to the Christmas day off, but like you say, news organisations stay open. We stayed open, providing support to businesses.
Did you? Even human resources stayed open. Yeah. You're not back on the 18th of January then.
You might still have HR issues. Those people that 24 hours, they might still need support as well. And you think about hospitality. If you think about care homes, they continue to work throughout as well.
How busy were you yesterday? Come on, no one's phoning up with sacking problems on Christmas Day, are they?
And we don't get too many calls, but you can still ring, just to be clear. But I mean, for some, Christmas Day is really busy. So important that a lot of people still have the right staffing.
Right. Okay. Well, that's good. So, but of course, the corresponding thing about the 26th of December, Boxing Day, is this is one of the busiest days of the year for retail and for absolutely everything else. Everything is open in a really bigly fashion.
Yeah, absolutely. If you think about retail, that's probably one of their busiest days of the year. So, I think a lot of people, it would be just a normal working day for them. A lot of businesses do say that, they're not allowed any time off over Christmas, complete ban over December. So it very much depends on the industry. But majority of businesses, obviously, have those shutdown periods. But for certain industries, that's their busiest time. So they need to stay open and be fully staffed.
Now, Boxing Day sales apparently are going to drop by £1 billion as the cost of living bites. Shoppers are expected to spend only 3.6 billion in the Boxing Day sales. That's about £1 billion less than last year as cost of living pressures dampen the typical bargain hunt. Are you finding in the HR world that people are being laid off in a big way, or kind of have we got to wait for that crisis of employment to settle down into the first months of next year?
I think, there are certain peaks where we certainly see more queries on that. If you think about the national insurance, the rises that businesses had in April, we certainly saw a rise there of people then looking at redundancies. And we've got the Employment Rights Act that is coming in, and a lot of those changes for SSP changes coming in April. And I think naturally, if there's going to be increased costs, then certain businesses will look at how they might be able to afford that, and then might look at redundancies. So it does very much depend, but you do see certainly at certain times of the year.
Right. Okay. I mean, that's very interesting. What are the trends that are going on in HR over the last? And you've got this sort of major employment law changes you've just mentioned, but what are the sort of changes that you've seen from January of this year to December? What are the kind of things that you're seeing more of and less of?
Yeah, I mean, if we particularly look at December, just thinking of, we get quite a lot of queries in relation to Christmas parties, advice of, potentially conduct issues that happen when there's a lot of alcohol involved.
Oh, you mean what, kissing under the mistletoe? Is that sort of thing?
A little bit like that, yeah. If there's quite a lot of alcohol involved, people doing things that they might not necessarily say or do if they were in the workplace, we certainly get calls in relation to that in December. And then, like we've said there, January to March, depending on what the budget looks like, or depending on if there's new employment law changes come in, that might be when people are looking at restructures or redundancies. And absence is a big one for HR as well. The SSP changes that are coming in, certainly we've done a lot of work with our clients to just make sure that people have quite strict absence management processes in place as well to prepare for that.
Nicola, listen, thank you very much. Very interesting. Nicola is the Associate Director of HR Consultancy Peninsula. And isn't it comforting that even human resources don't take Christmas Day off? It's one of those office jobs you think that, well, they're going to take the rest of the time off, but they're not. Very good indeed. Thank you very much to you, Nicola. We're here all time, aren't we? We're here all day. Phil Dave follows the news at 10 o'clock. Should we talk about the King's speech? Some of you didn't like what you heard. Some of you did. Gordon in Sutton, welcome to the show.
Morning, Johnny.
Good morning, Gordon. Good morning.
I appreciate taking my call.
Pleasure.
And you're right. No, I wasn't particularly happy with his speech. But what I wanted to talk about really was, you were from the West Midlands, aren't you?
I am, yeah.
What is your opinion about your local sort of police and their views on the Jewish community?
I'm scared witless. I've got to tell you, I am scared witless about how they came to that decision and if it was indeed independent. And if it wasn't independent, how infiltrated are they? I'm scared for the very vulnerable Jewish community in Birmingham. I'll give you an example, right? Birmingham has a population of something like 1.1 million. The conurbation of the West Midlands is about 2.5 to 3 million.
Yeah.
There are less than 3,000 Jewish people in Birmingham.
Really?
Yeah.
That's all?
It's tiny, yeah. And it never was a big community. Even maybe 70 years ago, the community was maybe at 7,000 and 8,000. It's just not that kind of city. I'm very proud of my city. I'm a fourth generation Brummie.
Where are you from? You're from Birmingham?
I'm from Birmingham, but we earned our living in the Black Country in Walsall.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of from both places, and I was a sports editor of a radio station in Wolverhampton for many years as well. So I feel like I'm from both places, you know.
The reason I mentioned this is I worked for a Jewish-owned company in Manchester for many years.
Yes.
And I couldn't have worked for nicer, more caring people. If I had issues, they'd help me, etc., etc., etc. And I think I have an affinity with the Jewish community. And I feel, what I feel is happening at the minute, I just think it's appalling.
Yeah, and I tell you what, Gordon, you're the soul of this country. You're what I remember about this place, and the sort of tolerance and affinity that you have enabled my grandparents on my mum's side to come here from the worst place in the world, which was Nazi Vienna.
Oh, they came from Austria, yeah?
Yeah. Like, they came, you know, the Germans invaded, didn't they? And
yeah, I understand.
they didn't even need to invade because the Austrians there were waiting for them, applauding them.
This walked in up the door.
Yeah, like, there you go. Oh, here we go. Some blokes in uniform.
Well, no difference to France and Holland and Belgium.
Yeah, so, you know, I'm really grateful for your moral support and your bit of history.
I have a really deep gratitude.
Well, that's amazing, and I'm extremely grateful, and thank you. And you're part of Talk, and I mean that in the truest sense of the word, because when I come here, I really feel that, and I feel that by extension of our dear listener and viewer who phones. And one of the reasons I might say that you do phone and you feel comfortable to say that is because of the output that my colleagues have produced here for many, many years.
Yeah.
So, Gordon, I am really, I'm quite,
I appreciate it.
I'm holding on back. I'm humbled, but I'm truly humbled by what you said, and thank you.
I will nip down my local synagogue next week and put my head inside the door. Even though, and I'll say this to you, you might laugh at it, I'm a goy.
Oh, don't. No. Yes, that's a word. Well, it literally means nation in Hebrew.
Yeah, I know.
It just, well, it's not always a positive word. So you're I think I'm going to call you a righteous individual. I think I might call you that instead, mate.
I've got a goy with chutzpah.
He's got chutzpah. He definitely has that. That means cheek. Thank you, Gordon. It's Gordon in Sutton. Thank you very much. Oh, leave them laughing. That's what I say. It's Jonny Gould here. Oh, it's travel. It's always it's the busiest day ever. It's the busiest day of travel. Is it the busiest day of travel? We'll find out from the man who always knows this stuff. He is the anorak of travel. He's the man who knows absolutely everything. He could read you the timetable from Rye to Eastbourne. It's Simon Calder from The Independent, and he's after this.
I was sat in the tent and he was showing me through photos of his phone, scrolling through. This was barbaric, horrific stuff. Blokes going through walls in vehicles and then jumping out and shooting everyone. His WhatsApp picture was him with a mask on, with a gun like that.
You're in a tent with this guy?
I'm in a tent with this guy, and actually he was just showing me this stuff. I'm just thinking, this is not the kind of bloke you want to be coming to the UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A warm welcome to your breakfast show here on Talk. I'm Jonny, and without further ado, let's go straight to talk to Simon Calder, who is a travel man supreme, travel correspondent for The Independent. Boxing Day travel, Simon. Is it always the busiest of ever busy things? I mean, we just heard the travel news there, and there are compromises with Saturday services, etc. You're in the Lake District. That's nice.
I am. I'm just beside Lake Windermere, which is absolutely beautiful. It's a lovely place to be stranded, which is just as well, Jonny, because being like more than 20 million other people living in Britain who does not have access to a car, I'm reliant on public transport. Just over there is a bus stop which from this afternoon will take me as far as Windermere Railway Station. However, having got there, my problems are only just beginning because, of course, there aren't any trains until tomorrow. Yes, there is a very, very limited network of trains running anywhere in the UK today. Your best chances are in Scotland, where ScotRail has really quite a busy schedule, linking Edinburgh with Glasgow and lots of nearby towns, and also running as far north as Perth, Dundee and Aberdeen. Further south, Liverpool, well, there's always a Merseyrail service on Boxing Day, limited service, but with extra trains to and from Aintree Racecourse. Chiltern Railways, Oxford Parkway to London Marylebone, there's a shuttle there. And then Southern has a link from London Victoria to Gatwick Airport and Brighton, as well as a few suburban services. Apart from that, you're going to be waiting till tomorrow. And if you're at the wrong station, even tomorrow, it's not going to open up. For example, London Waterloo and London Liverpool Street, two of the busiest stations in the country, are going to remain closed for Network Rail engineering works.
I am absolutely bowled over by your expertise, Simon. Like,
maybe I should get out more.
No, well, you do. You literally get out more than anyone else. You know absolutely everything.
Well, it's literally what I do. I mean, I'm afraid every Christmas is pretty much the same. I've been doing this since the dawn of time. And actually, if you go back to the 1970s, there were underground trains running right up until Christmas 1979 in London.
Really?
Now there's absolutely none on Christmas Day. They have restarted, but the UK's busiest rail line, which is the Elizabeth line, simply isn't getting out of bed this morning. And so, yeah, you're going to be reliant on flights. I mean, anybody who says, oh, well, there's no demand for travel on Boxing Day, the AA says 20 million motorists are going to be on the road. Bus companies, particularly Flixbus and National Express, running many, many services. And if you want to travel from Newcastle to Bristol or Edinburgh to London, there's loads of ways of doing it. You're just going to have to buy a flight ticket rather than actually get a train.
Wow.
So it doesn't really make much sense.
Which implies that the roads are going to be absolute nightmare today. You'd have to need a checkup from the neck up to start your engine today, wouldn't you?
OK, well, looking at the data that the AA has come up with, they say that mostly it's going to be local travel. So, for example, if you take the Manchester area, I personally, even if I did have a car, wouldn't be going anywhere near the M60 close to the Trafford Centre, or indeed in Kent near the Blue Water on the M25. Sure. But actually, most of the long distance traffic won't be running. Of course, very few trucks on the road today, very, very few commuters who have to, like you, go to work. And so, just be prepared, particularly because I think quite a lot of people like a bit of a Boxing Day sales frenzy. If you want to have a nice, quiet, stress-free time, stay away from big shopping, big retail areas.
OK, Simon, so 2026 is knocking on the door. What can we expect from travel this year? Will there be increased taxes on airlines? Travel, is the price of your season ticket going to go up on the railways? What about local bus services? Are we going to be hit hard in our travel for various different governmental reasons?
OK, aviation, air passenger duty goes up in April, and that will certainly be going ahead. That will add to a few pounds to a trip. Given that we have the world's best aviation industry, the most competitive links, it's not really going to be it's not a huge problem, because lots of people, every time air passenger duty goes up, they say, oh, well, I'm going to go to Paris or to Amsterdam and I'll fly from there. Well, the sums don't add up. The one place where it is worth doing, and this is what I tend to do, is from Dublin to the US. You can, and also Canada, you can save a fortune if you go across the Irish Sea, whether on a low-cost flight or on a ferry, and then fly from there. You also have the of great advantage for the US of being able to go through customs and border protection checks at Dublin. So when you arrive in the US, whether it's New York, Florida, California, wherever, you are a domestic passenger. So that's worth doing.
Fascinating.
Also on the trains, well, in the you might remember the budget. It was beautifully orchestrated, completely smooth, everything kept secret until the last possible moment. Actually, one of the rabbits they pulled out of the hat was to say, we're not going to have the normal rail fare increase this year. Or in the coming year, which will make a little bit of a difference to people. But otherwise, local buses, those most prices aren't going up. But I'm going back to sort of Boxing Day services. I think we need to be better at running buses, particularly rural travel. There's all sorts of things we don't do that we could do, which are being done, for example, in France to increase mobility and reduce people having to have cars, even if they don't particularly want one.
Can we talk about HS2? And obviously Rishi Sunak put a red pen through the northern parts of it. And there's a massive hole in the ground by Euston, and they've shut it all down, and they've allegedly dug up very, very old gravestones of some very eminent people right by Euston. And life behind the garden shed there is not the same for those people who live in Euston and Somerstown. And I'm sure there's a deep, in fact, I've seen it at Curzon Street in Birmingham. Any update? I mean, will we be retired by the time we can take it, Simon?
Right. You have many, many years before you will retire, so I'm sure you will be able to. No, I mean, the thing is an absolute shambles. It is utterly to the discredit of a sequence of governments that things have got into such a mess. What we're going through at the moment is the new boss, Mark Wilde, is coming in and doing a so-called reset, which is probably going to mean that it gets postponed even further down the track. No. I mean, ridiculously, the piece that we really needed was from Birmingham to Manchester, and that was what Rishi Sunak took so much glee in cancelling at the Tory conference, thinking it would be a vote winner. That went well then, didn't it? And so, no, unfortunately, it's it's an incredibly expensive mess, which is not going to deliver anything like the benefits that were originally promised, because bluntly, you need better links from the Midlands to Manchester and to Leeds, and those arms of the project have been axed. And so therefore we're going to get, hooray, slightly faster trains from London to Birmingham. Well, we've got plenty of rail options anyway there. It's the rest of the network that we needed. But that's what the last government decided to cancel. Of course, Labour could have uncancelled it, but they have chosen not to.
They've chosen not to. Simon, it does look a very nice place to be stranded. I hope you're staying like a king, the king you deserve to be. Enjoy the rest of your Christmas. Where are you going this year? Do we know yet?
The place I'm most excited about is Yerevan in Armenia.
Have you been there before?
No, I haven't. It was the first place I was going to go that was scuppered by COVID, if you can remember, going back, crikey, nearly 6 years now. But there's new flights starting up from lovely Luton to Yerevan, the capital, in June. So I'll be going out there to take a look.
How nice. And what do you hope, I mean, with your vast experience, I mean, have you got any preconceived ideas of what Yerevan offers? Will it be, will it be a tourist trap, or will it be a bit basic?
No, it's going to be very, very beautiful. The capital, Yerevan, was devastated by an earthquake about 40 years ago. Yes. So that won't be the most beautiful place in the world. But the Armenians I've met in the UK and elsewhere in the world have been absolutely fantastic. So it'll be very friendly. The food will be great.
I'm sure it will be. Simon, thank you. Happy travels. Merry Christmas. See you next time.
this journey of me following the migrants went from sort of 10 in the morning, all around the clock, to late at night, to the point where, you know, on buses, on trains, through streets, at every key point, French military police and the French police, they were there. They were on the bus, taking down notes, taking pictures, but not doing anything to deter the migrants or stop them, just being there. I was sat in the tent and he was showing me through photos of his phone, scrolling through. This was barbaric, horrific stuff. Blokes going through walls in vehicles and then jumping out and shooting everyone. You know, his WhatsApp picture was him with a mask on, with a gun like that.
You're in a tent with this guy?
I'm in a tent with this guy, and actually he's just showing me this stuff. I'm just thinking, this is not the kind of bloke you want to be coming to the UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hey, a warm welcome. It's Morning Glory. It's Johnny here in the chair from now until 10 o'clock. Welcome along if you've just woken up, and if you've just been with us for a while now and you're enjoying the cut of our jib, I hope you're having a wonderful Boxing Day. We've got another brilliant hour coming up. I'm going to start with a few texts. Good morning, Johnny. I'm 72. I moved from Birmingham to Devon 40 years ago. I saw the light. And don't forget, Fletcher's Bakery in Walsall was the best. Thanks very much for that, Steve. Clergy, that's the easiest job ever, says Anonymous, obviously not a vicar. Try thanking the electricity, gas and water company workers who try to keep networks running seamlessly. Just think of the water crisis in Tehran. They're running out. Lucky people. Electricity, gas and water at a flick of a switch 99.9% of the time. I think you noticed that sometimes we have to go and get buckets from local places, don't we? Standpipes. Now, 100 hours ago, the postman delivered Christmas morning, OK? I think she means 100 years ago. This is Stella from Swindon. Morning, Stella. 100 years ago, the postman delivered Christmas morning. My dad remembers their village postie having a nip at each house and getting very merry. That's the thing, though. In the olden days, there used to be 6 or 7 collections of post that you could post a letter in the morning and it might get delivered 3 hours later. Crowborough is a really depressing subject for so many people. We reflected it on the show a couple of days ago. Mike from Cheshire said, Johnny, good morning. Good morning, Mike. Crowborough and the migrant problem. 600 places at this Army Cadets camp, all taken up by 1 day's worth of crossings. And then some, because on Saturday, 803 migrants came over. A record for a December day. We're going to run out of army camps in 3 months, and then what? And that is the question, and then what? Why can't these illegal immigrants be put up in tents like other European countries? Why do they put them in barracks? Why hotels? No wonder these people won't stop coming to the UK. That's one of the many angles that we talked about with Tom Jones earlier on in the show. And a warm welcome if you've just switched on. Now listen, the rise of the Tories. They did something they haven't done for a while. They overtook Labour in the polls, and they're creeping up on reform. And the question is now, reform have really been dominating the polls over the last year or so, but have they, as David Coleman would say, peaked before the bell? Are the Tories, the natural party of government, about to find their way back with a potential new Mrs Thatcher, who, of course, in her opposition days, was underrated too? Is Kemi Badenoch, who's really getting stuck in there, having a good old go? I know who we should ask. We should ask former Conservative Cabinet Minister, Sir John Redwood. Sir John, welcome to the show.
Well, good morning, Johnny. Good morning, UK, and welcome to the audience on this lovely Boxing Day. We need some optimism. We need some common sense.
Absolutely.
But no, I think Kemi is doing fabulously. I think she's ahead of where Margaret Thatcher was at a similar time, and I was a great Margaret fan and, as a very young man, one of her advisors. But it was difficult for Margaret, but she managed to turn it round in a single parliament, and the rest is history, as they say.
I mean, she was formidable, and she was underestimated right up to, I think, probably the spring of 1979. No one thought that a woman with her bouffant hairdo could lead the country.
No, there's a lot of misogyny around,
Yes.
including her own colleagues. And as a young man, I didn't share any of that. I saw this was a very lively and brave woman with some good ideas. The country was in crisis, would you believe? The Labour government was overspending, over-borrowing, over-taxing. There was a huge brain drain, as it was called. People of talent and people with money were leaving the country. The economy was collapsing. We had a financial crash. The scene was set for something different, and Margaret seized the opportunity. It looks rather similar in many ways to what's going on at the moment.
So give us an idea of, I mean, because there's just no one in the world of leadership that looks like Kemi Badenoch in the truest sense of the word. She's completely unique. And in a visualization way, I can see her going to the White House and holding her own against Donald Trump. I can see her going into Europe and shaking hands with all those different plasticine leaders like Macron and Carney over in Canada. I can see it, and I think they would be arrested by her formidability and her very, very difference.
Yeah, well, she looks the part, and she's now performing the part, and she's getting the words and the ideas because there's belief there. I think that's what people crave. They want politicians who have some good ideas, stick with them, explain them. Sometimes they're not popular when you first announce them, but if they work, then the public is very relieved. And many of the things Margaret Thatcher did polled extremely badly when we first tested them out in the polls. But when you did them and people were better off, they could buy their own house, they could buy shares in a utility, they could get a better paid job. They said, oh, well, we didn't necessarily agree with it at the beginning, but this is working for us. So when it got to ballot box time, Margaret always won.
Sorry, carry on.
Kemi Badenoch, you know, she's been brave enough to come out in the middle of this developing economic crisis and say something that opposition people don't normally say. And she's saying, you know what, you're spending too much. And even better, these are the things I would spend less on. And all the clever advisors normally say to opposition people, there's no need for you to take any unpopular decisions, no need for you to associate yourself with anything like that. But Kemi did it, the only party out there telling the public the truth, that the government's wasting too much, spending too much, borrowing too much. And if you don't start to correct that, the economy is never going to work. You're not going to get the growth, you're not going to get the lower taxes, you're not going to get the better rewards for enterprise and hardworking people. So she's got the key to the growth door, and the other parties just don't want to go there.
Gotta say, I've been extremely impressed with her, mostly when she talks with a level of conviction and where she resorts into her own experience. I remember being arrested by her evisceration of Angela Rayner in those dark days where we were saying, well, why don't you perform with that a little bit more often? She said, I was brought up in Nigeria, so I know socialism's no good. And by the way, your housing thing, you're the fall guy, the fall girl, if you like, for the leaders. They've dumped you in the worst job possible with targets which you're never going to get. And then she went quiet for a few months, and then finally she gave, you know, a right and a left hook, an uppercut, or not any cut you like, to Rachel Reeves, which stormed her back into the agenda, not also withstanding this brilliant performance at the Tory party conference where she got rid of stamp duty if elected. All of these things together make her a real prospect to be Prime Minister, and no one's going to dish out the canned laughter to me these days. She's back, isn't she?
Well, I think so. And as I said, I think she's ahead of where Margaret Thatcher was, basically similar at the same stage when she'd been adopted by the party. And I think the country has moved on, but a lot of the politicians haven't. And there's still some misogyny around, and there's some people saying this isn't somebody who can lead the country, but they haven't haven't read the script and don't understand the modern world. She's entirely the kind of person who can lead the country because of that belief and because she's prepared to say things that she would be advised not to, because it's a bit foolish in opposition, they say, to say things need changing for the worse in some cases, where you've got to take actions to get the economy sorted out. Because if you don't get the economy sorted out, nothing else will work, and you will run out of money quite quickly, as this government is discovering.
Yeah. There's another thing which I'm very impressed by. She won't play the race card and she won't play the woman card either. And when she comes across other black people or other women, she has a pop at them and refuses to be black and refuses to be a woman. She's an utter meritocrat.
Well, of course, that's what we love about her. And that's why I say the others have got to start living in the modern world, because I think that's where most normal people are in Britain. We don't go around judging people by their race or their creed or their looks or their colour. You judge them by what they contribute, what they say, what they believe in, how they deport themselves. And that's exactly how Kemi judges people. And I think that Kemi response to the budget was the best response to a budget by a leader of the opposition I've ever seen, and I've been in Parliament for quite a few years and seen quite a lot of them. But it was fantastic, and it was fantastic because it was personal, it was based on belief, but it was also based on very sound economics. Spend too much and nothing works.
So, John, can we talk about the migration and the defection, if you like, of quite senior Conservative people to reform? Maybe that leak has been stemmed now by the return of the Tories to some sort of semblance of organisation. We've seen Danny Kruger go over there. We've seen Dr. Anna Mendoza, who's obviously not a politician but head of the Henry Jackson Society, choose to go over with a foreign policy brief to go to the very higher sort of offices of reform. Obviously, they are in need of political experience. But do you not think they might have peaked before the bell, that perhaps people who were instinctive Conservatives for many decades, who may have seen their careers not kind of develop in the way that they want, going to the reform is not the answer?
Well, I think more are coming to that conclusion, and when the polls wobble a bit for them, then people who are likely to swap around too often are less likely to swap in their direction, because there isn't the same bandwagon effect. But what do I think? I think 3 years or more before a general election, these polls are interesting because they tell you what the current mood is, but they don't tell you very much about what's going to happen in 3 years' time. In 3 years' time, Labour may have made a worse mess, and the landslide against them will be even bigger. We may find that the Kemi effect is working on a sustained basis. But I think she's pacing it right, because what she's saying and doing is based on proper research and building a team. And that's where I think Reform have gone a bit wrong. They put out some very attractive headlines, which got them instant gratification and a rise in the polls. But then when they're asked, how would you actually do it in government? They haven't really done all the thinking on that bit. And when you say, well, who would do it in government? They haven't even named the people that they'd like to be part of their top team around Nigel. And Nigel's obviously a very talented campaigner and wordsmith and reads the polls day by day. But they're not a government in waiting, whereas Kemi is building a government in waiting with some heavy hitters around her, and the Shadow Business Secretary, the Shadow Home Secretary, and the Shadow Chancellor, for example. They're out there, they speak to their subject, they know more about their subject than a leader can know, because they do the detail to help her. Whereas Nigel doesn't have any of that kind of talented backup.
No, that is something that must concern Reform, because of all the bluster and all the confidence that they present. They are a government of no experience, and as you mentioned, that is something that the Tories have. And I think there's quite a big gap between what the Tories stand for and what Reform stand for. They're very disciplined, the Tories, in comparison to Reform. And when now we've seen Reform running councils, what we have to understand, I believe, about Reform is that they're a coalition of the left and right, which means that they may not be a government that cuts taxes in quite the way the Tories would. That economic competence which the Tories have been known for, sometimes they've fallen over on it, but the Tories are very much more disciplined when it comes to fiscal discipline than maybe reform will be, because they are a coalition of traditional Labour voters and obviously disaffected Tories.
Well, you're right, and that's why I say that Nigel is very good at headline chasing and seeing what people would like, but you can't just put together a manifesto of everything people would like, because it would be unaffordable and incredible. Whereas the Conservatives are doing the hard work on how you can reduce public spending without damaging the core services, which we obviously don't want to damage. So I think that's going to be the story of the next couple of years. I think it's great sadness that Reform had the great idea that councils spend too much and tax too much, and then when they get control of councils, what do? They put spending up and they put the council tax up, and that, I think, will come to haunt them, because it's a promise not delivered. And Nigel had an incredibly attractive and generous set of offers on tax reductions at the last general election, and he's now seen that they were implausible, that you couldn't afford them, and he's had to tear them all up, and hasn't yet got round to a new offer.
Sir John Redwood, thank you very much indeed. Merry Christmas, happy Boxing Day. Enjoy the rest of your break, and thank you very much for joining us here.
Your common sense show. It's great news, and we need more common sense.
Oh, I'm really pleased to hear that. Yes, we're all about common sense here. Sir John, thank you very much. That is Sir John Redwood joining us on the show, and pleased to have him here on the show. Welcome, morning. It's Johnny here. I'm here until 10 o'clock. Yes, I know, but Phil Davies coming up at 10 o'clock to keep the pot bubbling here. In just a moment, we're going to go into the NHS and talk to Dr. Lawrence Buckman, a GP and a former chair of the British Medical Association's GPs Committee, about NHS staff sacked in record numbers due to incompetence. And don't ask chatbots for mental health help, says NHS chief. And I think that is a statement of the bleeding obvious. We'll find out more from Dr. Lawrence Buckman in a moment.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
And thanks to Steve, who's just texted us. Morning, Steve. A full merger between Reform and the Tories is unlikely. A pact, though, has to happen to avoid cancelling each other out at the ballot box. So a split along the lines of the ancient Danelaw, says Steve, where Reform gets the North, the East and Wales, and the Tories get the heartlands, the South and the West, seems sensible. So I presume what you're doing is what Nigel Farage did in Theresa May's election, or was it Boris Johnson's election, where he used the Theresa May results in 2017 to say, look, we're going to withdraw the Brexit Party or Reform, whatever they were called in those days, away from, you know, the potential seats where the Tories can win, and that contributed to a massive majority for Boris Johnson in 2019, didn't it? Where he won 83-seat majority. So that's an interesting one, maybe, Steve. It's certainly something they won't admit to this early in the election cycle, because, of course, we are still 3.5 years away. But you just wonder, as they have a bit of experience of that, as they have done that, will Reform blink later in this election cycle and let the Tories, who are increasing, are improving in terms of the opinion polls, as Sir John Redwood said in the interview last week about Kemi, that things are improving for the Tories. So let's just see what kind of right-wing government there could be at the next general election if Labour keep on shooting themselves in the foot with very unpopular policies. Now, incompetent NHS staff have been sacked in record numbers. The dismissals follow Wes Streeting's vow to introduce a zero-tolerance approach to poor performance. So NHS data on this shows that there were almost 7,000 dismissals in 2024 and 25, up from about 4,000 2 years ago, and a record since figures were first collected 14 years ago. Let's talk to Dr. Lawrence Buckman, who's a GP and the former chair of the BMA's GPs Committee. Hello, Lawrence.
Morning.
Merry Christmas to you.
Same to you.
Thanks very much. So is Wes Streeting getting stuck in finally? Are we seeing a sort of reform through swinging sackings, at least a bit of competence required?
Nobody who works in the health service wants to be with incompetent colleagues.
No.
Doctors and nurses and midwives have been ruthlessly weeded by their regulators to get rid of incompetence, and yet there still are doctors and nurses and midwives who one would prefer to cease practice. And the fact that they're still around means that the regulation process works, albeit faultily. We want to help those colleagues who can be helped, and those who can't be helped should be encouraged to go. And I don't think anybody who works in the health service wants to support poor practice. So I think this is something that has to come. What we mustn't do is induce a wariness amongst colleagues who decide that they'd rather not do something than risk being accused of incompetence. And what you're going to end up with is a defensive culture, which you don't want. And I don't think that's Wes Streeting's idea either. But getting rid of incompetent people, I think, is something which we should encourage, preferably through education, remediation, and for those who really can't, encouragement to go.
So it's a lot bigger, these dismissals through incompetence, 7,000 this year as opposed to 4,000 2 years ago. Now, the rise has been fuelled, Lawrence, by an increase in NHS workers being let go on capability grounds, which make up more than half of the most recent dismissals. And staff apparently can be dismissed for a number of reasons, including misconduct, redundancy and capability, defined as an inability to fulfil the basic requirements of a job. Is this a consequence of the fact that it's just got too fat? The public sector is just too invested in, and that we've not got the standards that are needed to run essentially what is a business?
We have got the standards, and there are ways of doing it. What happens is that local managements or whether this is to do with doctors or nurses or whoever in the hospital or in general practice, local managements are very wary of saying to someone, we don't think you're capable. And we would always encourage people to render themselves capable by learning how to do the job properly. But where someone can't be remediated, I'm afraid my sympathies lie with Mr. Streeting.
Right. How's he doing? Because, of course, this is a very, very important job in itself, Health Secretary, with a massive, massive business. Correct me if I'm wrong, it's a £130 billion year investment in the NHS?
About that, yeah.
It's about that number. But it's also a dress rehearsal for the big job as well. He wants to be Prime Minister.
Yes. I don't worry about politicians' ambitions. I've met enough of them to know that whatever their ambitions are may well not be realised, and I can't cope with people who kid themselves and then feel let down afterwards. So let's just say he's doing a reasonable job. He hasn't scored high with the resident doctors, and nor are they. And they would all do well to put the megaphones down and actually sit around a table together, because they're going to do that eventually. They might as well do it now.
Yeah.
And I think, but if you ask me, is he doing a reasonable job as Secretary of State? Yes, I think he is.
I tell you what, this resident doctors' strike that's just happened and just finished is not a good look. I mean, they got a huge pay rise when the Labour Party came into power, and now they're at it again. It's got to be one of the most unpopular strikes around. Do you sympathise with them in any way, or should you just sort of say to them, get back to work, stop messing about?
I sympathise with them, but I don't think the approach of striking against patients has a good smell.
No.
And I think it's mistaken to fix on money when actually there are a set of very important issues which are not much to do with money, and are very much to do with career progression and indeed getting a job at all.
Yeah.
We have a health service that got rid of its workforce controls 20 years ago, and a lot of people, including me, said one day you'll run out of jobs, and that's exactly what's happened. And it would have been wise for both the residents and Wes Streeting to have actually thought constructively, how do we produce a career progression into which pay could be linked, rather than a straightforward cash demand. But they didn't ask me, so I didn't have an opportunity to tell them.
Right. The other thing is that, you know, like many, many jobs, you sit on people for their vocational desire to do well in it, and that the money isn't necessarily sort of the main driver, that you just want to be the best doctor that you want to be. Like, we want to be the best broadcaster, the best producer. You know, we come to work on funny days. We always say yes to work because we love our jobs. The same with doctors. And yet, of course, we realise that doctors live in an international market where they can go to Dubai and tax-free huge moolah. They go to Florida. They get anywhere where the sun shines better than it does here in Australia, for example. Is part of this the fact that, you know, like it or lump it, resident doctors are part of an international jobs market?
Yes, they are. And they can see what's going on in the rest of the world, and they can see how many of their colleagues are not able to get any realistic work progression, and they look around and they're very uncomfortable. Once you start being uncomfortable and dissatisfied, it's very easy to latch onto the few things you think you can change, like pay. I would have probably not gone for pay as my first target, but that's what they've done. And whilst I sympathise and understand why they feel the way they do, I think they're going to end up talking, so they might as well start thinking about how they can constructively improve their bit of the NHS for them and the patients' benefit. Patients benefit from fully employed doctors, and at the moment there are quite a lot of doctors who are not fully employed the way they would wish to be, and the NHS has lost control of how doctors will flow through the sausage machine from junior doctor to senior doctor.
Right, OK, that's also very interesting. Now, there's another story fishing around here, which is, don't ask chatbots for mental health help, says NHS chief. I mean, this is, again, something that many of us who use AI in our jobs to hopefully help us along realise that it's called internet scraping, that, you know, ChatGPT and the other one, Grok, they don't always answer in the way that you expect, and their knowledge of it is sometimes grappling with very old newspaper articles from 2 years ago. So the NHS has warned that people with mental health problems need to avoid using chatbots for support over Christmas. Dr. Adrian James, the National Medical Director for Mental Health with NHS England, said using the technology as therapy can be dangerous. This is a watchword for everything, Lawrence, that basically just use it at your peril. You've still got to use the human. The human is still cleverer than the AI tool, despite what all the hype is. It's terrible.
Absolutely. The idea that you would talk to a machine that would generate sympathetic noise when what you actually want is empathy, understanding. You don't want somebody to say they're there to you. You want somebody to help you with your problem. And I'm afraid that needs real people. And real people who work as real therapists, they spend a lot of time playing hunches, spotting the people who have serious mental illness from which they may end up killing themselves,
yes,
or where medication is not working, or where the problem is much more complicated than a simple answer would do. And I think no one should be using ChatGPT or any of the other AI systems to help them with mental health problems. If you think you're mentally ill, or you feel so unhappy you might want to harm yourself, call your doctor. Call NHS 111. If it's really urgent, call 999. But don't use a chatbot.
Don't use a chatbot, really. You've got to use it at your peril. Dr. Lawrence Buckman, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Issues in the NHS will continue. It'll be continuing to be a big story into 2026. As will the potential recession, which is just around the corner, because people are beginning to tighten their belts, aren't they? Boxing Day sales apparently are going to drop by £1 billion this year, and that's a significant drop. Let's find out about that in just a moment with Claire Bailey. She's the retail and high street expert and the author of The Retail Champion. Stay tuned, will you?
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome along to your Boxing Day. It's Jonny here in the chair, only for about another 25 minutes or so, and then Phil Dave takes over. Now, this is a bit of an alert for you, which is that Boxing Day sales are going to drop by £1 billion as a cost of living crisis bites. OK, now, they're expected to spend as shoppers £3.6 billion, but that's £1 billion less as the cost of living pressures dampen the typical bargain hunt. The estimate comes from Barclays, which tracks nearly half of credit and debit card transactions in the UK. And this anticipated drop, which is a blow to retailers during their crucial golden quarter of trading, has been attributed to the rise in the cost of living, with 7 in 10 people saying price pressures will affect their spending. I do remember at the beginning of the Ukraine-Russian war how the cost of groceries sort of jumped, and now it seems to have jumped again. Things that were £2.50 are now nearly £4. I'm making a little mental note when I go out shopping. The missus is looking at her bills and thinking, well, you know, we've got to keep going, but what shall we spend less on? These are real issues for all of us. So let's talk to Claire Bailey, retail and high street expert and author of The Retail Champion. Morning, Claire. Is this the shape of things to come?
Yes, good morning. And my apologies for not having video available for you today.
That's okay, but it's a nice still shot of you, so we're all right.
I'm glad you think so. And it's not only a £1 billion drop in terms of spending. You have to then also think about the fact that what you just said, that prices have gone up. So it's a much greater drop overall in terms of the margin and the profit that the retailers make. Now, I know a lot of people don't particularly adore the fact that retailers have to make a profit, but then again, think about your pension fund. Who's it invested with? Is it Marks and Spencer's? Is it Tesco's? And if they don't have a good Christmas, everything falls. The cost of everything just gets impacted when we don't spend. So this is a very significant worry for not just the high streets with the independents, but also the big stores who are paying out into our pension funds.
Right. So what's going to happen now? I mean, because presumably if there's this huge amount of stock that doesn't get sold even at reduced must end today prices, we're going to have sales go on till February, aren't we?
Well, there's two things that can happen. They can either recall it back to the warehouses
Right.
and put it back out next year if it's things like Christmas cards.
What, at
wrapping
full
paper
price
and
or
so
something
on.
next year?
Well, whatever the price they can get for
that
it,
sort
to be
of thing.
honest.
But what I'm saying is
But
that the price will go
perishable
down in
stock.
January, but then obviously it'll be back, you know, at $9.99 come December 2026. Is that what you mean?
It could, but if it's things like fashion, which of course is something that people are aware of and trends change, then that stock has to be sold, or it gets sold off to organisations that are known as jobbers in the industry. And they're traders who actually buy back the stock that the retailers can't sell and sell it on to people like market traders or internationally. And the very worst scenario is it ends up in landfill. And that's a very
awful.
significant problem.
Can perfectly good pair of jeans that weren't sold on January the 8th end up in landfill on September the 10th?
It's happened with high fashion because they'd rather that product end up in the bin than end up in the hands of somebody who's selling it off.
That's awful. I mean, I might go and fumble through the soil for my wardrobe. There must be something in there that I'd have a look at. No, that's absolutely awful.
I mean, the thing is, for the people who are out spending today, and actually quite a lot of retailers choose to close today after a campaign up to about 10 years ago to give retail workers the opportunity to have the second day off, because there was this big campaign about, retail workers shouldn't have to work on Boxing Day. But the shops that are open possibly and almost certainly went into sale online as soon as they closed on Christmas Eve. So the online sales are likely to be quite significant. Whether people go out or not is massively dependent on the weather, family traditions and so on. But I do fully expect that even if the drop in spending is that much, the drop in profit is even less.
How much of an outlier has the emergence of the internet market changed retail for good? Now, on your average Oxford Street or Regent Street or Corporation Street and New Street, you might not notice these things because, of course, they are famous streets full of Apple and, you know, all the big kind of international sketchers and those kind of people. But when you go to Eastbourne, for example, and they have department stores that will never see the light of day again, and those Debenhams which are sort of falling into disrepair, you know, they're going to be empty for years and hopefully not decades, because the reality is that the high street has now changed for good.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's one of the biggest worries, is that what happened way back before the internet was we started to build out of town housing and then out of town shopping centres. We became very car dependent. Our town centres are historic and they're not really that well set up for cars and so on. So people need to move back into high streets, and that's one of the things that I am actually grateful for, some of the planning reforms whereby I've seen cases where a Debenham store is being turned into accommodation, and a significant amount of people will then move back into the high street. Yes, the Debenham store will no longer be selling stuff, but all the sort of the neighbourhood will benefit from people living there. So we have to get the balance back again. The internet, a lot of people blame the internet, but I don't think it's the problem, because even in COVID, the internet only went up to 35% of all online sales, according to the ONS, and it regularly sits around 20 to 25%. So that means that, you know, between 80 and 75% of all sales are done in a physical environment.
Sure.
The difficulty is where people live, and they don't live in high streets, they don't live in town centres, so they go to out of town. So my firm belief is that the more people that live in high streets, the better the high streets will be.
Right, okay. Now, despite embracing modern habits, the vast majority of punters still plan to do at least some of their festive shopping in store. Of those hitting the high street, 1 in 4 say they view Boxing Day deal hunting as a Christmas activity.
Exactly.
And many say they enjoy the human interaction. And I can tell you, I bought 3 pairs of jeans off the interweb, and I had to take 2 of them back because they were like flapping tents. You know, you've got to kind of feel the quality and the width.
You do, and I think that's why people do spend, you know, that majority of their cash in physical stores. But the difficulty is, and I heard this from a retailer I only spoke to 2 days ago in Kent, he was saying that people were coming into a shop, but they were also looking online to price compare, and they were experiencing the quality and whatever of the product, but then looking for it cheaper online. And it's a phenomenon, it's called showrooming. So we do have to remind ourselves that if we want a vibrant high street and a good community and local employment and all the things that go with a thriving high street, you can't go into a shop, experience the quality of a product, and then order it for £2 less on Amazon, for example. It's just not the way it should be, because that £2 needs to line the pockets of your independent retailers and local business owners, not online giants.
Right, okay. So the next thing we need to ask about this is the impact of AI. Now, my imagination isn't big enough to understand what AI might be doing to the retail fashion world. Can you put a picture of yourself on an AI tool and then dress up in, you know, a Marks and Spencer suit, for example? Other suit makers are available.
Yes, but it's only a picture, isn't it? It's not like you're going out looking great. It's just a photograph. So you still have to buy the suit if you want to wear the suit.
So what good uses of AI are in your business?
So for me and the companies I work with, they use a lot of AI to predict fashion trends and to calculate what they need to order and what size trends and colour trends are going on. So it deals with a lot of the admin that we used to do on clunky spreadsheets or very, very expensive software. And now even smaller retailers have access to the facility to manage a lot of the heavy lifting with AI. But it can, I don't know yet, but I firmly believe it can't replace the human touch and the human intelligence. And you need a human to drive it. You need somebody to have the intelligence to ask it the right questions, to spit out the right answers.
I've got this little theory that AI is going to accelerate our own competition against the computers and sort of necessitate the need for human invention to become even greater, because we're going to have to run a bit faster than the silly computers, aren't we? I know that's affected me a little bit so far.
I also think there's a certain homogenization in consumerism, and people are beginning to really value the human touch a little bit more, and handmade and artisan and something that's not just exactly the same every single time will become more preferred. And I felt that for some time. You know, we saw the rise of 3D printing, which of course means that you can really knock out basic goods very, very cheaply. But it's not the same as having somebody who's labored over, I don't know, making a loaf of bread or a handmade dress for you.
And that dovetails into this idea of food provenance, for example. Everyone wants to know where the farmer grew that tomato.
Yes, and there's a certain gentleman who's very much championed farming lately and has become very popular through TV shows. And I think...
Who's that? Tell us.
Am I allowed to? Well, of course, Jeremy Clarkson and Clarkson's
Oh, him,
Farm.
yeah. Oh, yeah, Jeremy Clarkson.
I mean, but what's brought to the forefront of people's minds is how difficult it is to produce properly and with provenance in mind. And made sort of a clear understanding of what food prices need to be versus what people want to spend. And that's the other problem. We've been brought up by supermarkets who tell us you can get a chicken for £3. Well, that just doesn't make sense.
In fact, we've had a farmer on this morning complaining about that very idea. He makes 1% profit on his beef. Fourth generation
pretty
beef
good
farmer.
for a farmer.
Yeah, well, 1%. Oh, I think I would say he deserves 2. Even more.
Yes, but it's been the way that it's been managed for so many years. I used to, crikey, I don't want to declare how many years ago now, but it's more than 20. I used to run the beef and fish category for what was Safeway, now Morrison. And the way that we were buying beef and fish and the pressure we put on our suppliers as retailers was really, quite frankly, obscene.
Do you feel guilty now, all these years later?
Yeah, I do. But it was what was expected of us. We had to negotiate hard because the general public wanted to buy things cheap. And that's part of why the cost of living is such a situation at the moment, because people expect to pay much less than things actually cost.
It feels like a confession. You're absolved, my child.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, Merry Christmas. Happy Boxing Day, Claire. It's been nice to speak to you. And enjoy the rest of your holiday time. Oh, it's all good, this. We're going to have voice notes, your calls, your texts, your comments right after this.
brand new for 2026. It's going to be the only way to start your day. It's the home of common sense. It's where the nation can come to speak about the day's news. It's the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. You know who you are. You get up, you graft, you work hard. I'm here for you. We want to hear your side. Promise you one thing. It is where the nation can and will come to talk. The Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show, weekdays from 6 a.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A warm welcome to the last few mins of the breakfast show. I'm Johnny, and I will be handing over the reins to Phil in just a moment. A couple of texts for you now. Morning, Johnny. John in Norfolk here. Hello, John. Just wanted to say that I'm an avid Talk listener, and I've already been enjoying your relaxed delivery across the festive period. You really get to all the current issues, but in a very distinctive fashion, which I'm enjoying enormously. Thank you, and have a great Christmas period. Now, I always have room for compliments. So, John, thank you very much indeed for that. I might read it again. No, I'm going to go on to a voice note now. This one from Martin on Jewish culture. Martin.
Morning, Johnny. Just listen to the chap who said he used to work for a Jewish family, a Jewish business, and he feels an affinity with them. I think everybody in Britain should feel an affinity with Jewish people, because our fathers, grandfathers, etc., went to war to fight against the Nazis. And if that doesn't give us some sort of bond, I really don't know what does. So, yeah, I mean, the Jewish community may be small, but I think you'll find there's a lot of support for the Jewish community in Britain. I hope so, anyway. Anyway, great show. Merry Boxing Day.
Merry Boxing Day. Martin, I'm totally bowled over by this. Honestly, I'm truly humbled by the reaction I get. And as I say, it's not just about people phoning in, it is what this station kind of stands for. Values and a history that not everyone else does. Do you know what I mean? This one from Karen in Swadlincote.
When I was a little girl, I grew up opposite 3 Jewish ladies, and on the corner was the hairdressers owned by a Jewish lady, and you couldn't wish to meet better people. Down the road, four from our house, was a Jewish couple, and they were so welcoming, friendly. Nobody could have asked for more from them. I've got no problem with anyone, Jewish, Asian, Muslim, British. We're all the same. We've all got the same skeletal system. We've all got the same muscle system. We've all got the same colour of blood. We should all just get on. These terrorists and people who want to kill us, they're not welcome here. But I'd welcome Jewish people with open arms. Have a good time in the new year, Talk Radio. Thank you. Bye.
That is Karen in Swadlincote. I'm totally bowled over. I've got a frog in my throat. I know what this place is made of, but when you hear it like that with such passion and energy and sincerity, it's quite a way for me to sign off and come back to you tomorrow morning. Honestly, I really will have sweet dreams tonight, and thank you very much for being such a terrific audience. Phil, Dave, is here. Phil, don't mess it up.
Jonny Gould, good morning. Yeah, what could possibly go wrong? There's absolutely no pressure, is there, at all?
How are you doing?
I'm
Merry
very
Christmas.
well, thank you. Yeah, Merry Christmas to you as well. How are you? Enjoying you on breakfast this morning? You know?
It's a good old shift, 4 hours, but you know it's flown by. We've had some really great guests.
You still seem quite fresh-faced for it. It doesn't seem to have traumatised you too much.
I'm not even wearing makeup either.
No, I realised that, and I tell you how I knew is because that the makeup bag that was left for both of us to have to. This is an inside information.
Right, I didn't even know there was.
There was a makeup bag that was left for you and I to have to do our own makeup this morning.
I wouldn't do that.
No, I didn't.
I wasn't in Spandau Ballet or Duran Duran. I don't know anything about it.
Well, I can't pretend to be an expert, as probably anyone watching would be able to tell. But I gave it a shot and I saw what I could do. Anyway, I knew that you hadn't because it was intact. It was in exactly the same place that it was left. So I knew you hadn't done it. But anyway. So the upshot was
back later.
The upshot was that I realised that I'm probably going to be the only one who's had a vague attempt at trying to powder myself this morning. Anyway, it doesn't
You've
really
done
matter.
very well, young man.
How very kind of you to lie like that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
keep going. And what's coming up on the show?
A great question. There's loads to get through. I was quite convinced as it was Boxing Day it was going to be nice and quiet, but no. We've got some great people to discuss several subjects this morning, including this new mansion tax that's potentially going to hit homes. I know that you've mentioned as well, but there's also the latest poll that amongst Labour voters that sees that Starmer is not so popular with the people who voted for him back in 2024. I mean, some might say quelle surprise.
Act in haste, repent at leisure.
Well, yeah, I dare say he will repent at some stage, I've no doubt. But Labour's small vote shame has also been revealed. Bombshell charts. It just shows the off-the-scale numbers that we have experienced over the last year and certainly since Labour came to power. So there's all of that and much more. Plus, I'm also going to be asking what you made of the King's speech yesterday. How do you interpret that is what I want to know.
Because I watched it very, very closely, for not just for citizenry interests or subject interests, but also for the show itself. And I watched all the underlay underneath his observations. There was a widespread support, I think, for the Jewish community at our time
I noticed
of
that.
desperation.
Yeah.
And also a kind of connection, I think, that is sponsored by the government here, which is they want to get us back into Europe.
Yeah, look, I don't think that that's any hidden secret. Starmer has always been quite vocal about being anti us ever leaving the European Union, so it's not exactly like they hide it.
No, but he's making the King say it.
Yeah, I don't really care very much for the idea of sort of encouraging the monarch, who's supposed to be apolitical, to try and sort of start allowing politics to creep through, and certainly that was proven to me in the speech yesterday, that it kind of got to about the level it can get to before the King started actually getting political. And I just feel that